This episode starts with Shirley giving her class a tour of the Canterlot Castle Gardens, and the CMC starts spontaneously arguing. They come across a statue of
This creature is called a Draconequus.
Yeah, that. It's named Discord, and it's...
Confusion, evil, chaos! It's not chaos, you dodo! Don't call me things I don't know the meaning of, and it is too chaos! It's not! You're both wrong!
Huh, I thought they were friends. No, it's actually the spirit of chaos, and their arguing seems to have an interesting effect on the statue. Wow, you three just screwed the world. Congratulations. Cue happy music.
My little boy.
Rainbow Dash is flying around when she gets hit by an unruly cloud made out of cotton candy, which rains chocolate milk. No, I am not making the reference. And Applejack's corn crops turn into popcorn. And apples grow about 5 times their prior size. Rabbits get super long legs with hooves. Yeah, a lot happens really quickly. Twilight comes along with her brand new Fix Everything spell, which does a grand total of nothing. Rainbow corrals all the clouds, and Applejack lowers them to the ground. And Fluttershy gets the animals to eat them, much to Pinky's annoyance. Spike gives them a letter saying the Princess Celestia wants to see them all immediately. Apparently, all the chaos was caused by Discord, who happens to be an old enemy of Celestia and Luna's. Long story short, Discord is not a good creature. Celestia and Luna turned him into stone with the elements of harmony. He's back, and it's up to the main 6 because the princesses are no longer bonded to the elements. Unfortunately, the elements are missing, and we get our first sight of Discord. If you don't know who voiced him, you aren't doing this brony thing right.
It's quite lonely being encased in stone, but you wouldn't know that, would you? Because I don't turn ponies into stone.
Discord took the elements away, and he seems to take delight in getting inside the ponies' heads. Or on them. Discord then gives them a riddle to find the lost elements.
Retrieve your missing elements, just make sense of this change of events. Twists and turns are my master plan. Then find the elements back where you began.
Twilight sees the palace labyrinth and assumes that that's where Discord hid them. One question. Why do you have a palace labyrinth? When they get to the maze, Rainbow tries to fly over, but Discord, being one step ahead of them, take the Pegasi's wings and the unicorn's horns. So, apparently this is a game now, and there are only 2 rules. Rule 1 is no flying and no magic. And Rule 2 is that every pony has to play. Actually, that sounds pretty fair.
Never fear, girls. We have each other. Yeah, like Twilight said, there's nothing we can't overcome if we all stick together.
The second they step in the maze, Discord separates all of them. They decide that the best course of action is to find their way to the center and regroup there. Sounds logical. Applejack comes across some loose apples that she follows to a strange apple orchard. Then 3 apple creatures arise and tell Applejack to ask one question, and they'll answer it.
Alright then. I don't trust this place worth a hill of beans, but I got a real bad feeling about this feller, Discord. What's gonna come of this here mission we're on?
For the answer you seek, go ahead, take a peek. I hope I never see you again! 2, 5! It's settled then.
I love a good self-fulfilling prophecy. Yep, Discord turns Applejack's element on its head, convincing her that sometimes a comforting lie is better than a painful truth. Twilight comes across Applejack, and Applejack has actually gotten better at lying. Pinkie Pie finds a balloon garden and is just excited to be there.
Come on, when is a balloon ever gonna look intimidating?
You had to ask. A balloon trips Pinkie in the mud, and all the others start laughing at her. Then Discord convinces Pinkie that her friends think that she's just one big joke.
Poor Pinkie Pie. And here I thought laughter made you happy.
Happy? I don't think so.
Twilight meets up, but Pinkie is incredibly grumpy now. Next up, we have Rarity, who comes across some gems in a rock. She becomes tempted by the jewels, but she actually tries to fight it. I'm impressed. But she does eventually fail, and she turns to greed. I'm not entirely sure about this one. I mean, I get the previous ones. Sometimes the truth and laughter can be painful. But here, Discord just got Rarity to take a chunk of rock. It would have made much more sense if Rarity was forced to be a little too generous and give away something too important. Next up is Fluttershy, who gets lured by butterflies. They turn out to be Discord, and this is actually pretty hilarious.
So-called friends, huh?
Oh no, I'm certain they're doing their best to find me.
Well, it must be so upsetting to know how weak and helpless they think you are.
Not at all. I Some we can help us, and I appreciate their understanding.
Yes, well, surely it burns you up. I mean, they're always pointing out your flaws, right?
Not really.
Yes, Fluttershy just counter-trolled Discord. Him not being too happy just taps her on her head and turns her cruel. Yes, Discord was playing mind games all along simply because he felt like it. That's the kind of guy he is, and it is awesome.
I'm so glad to see a friendly face. This awful labyrinth is getting to every pony. Aw, boo-hoo-hoo. Why don't you wave your magic little horn and make everything all right? Oh, that's right. You can't. You don't have one.
No comment. Last up is Rainbow Dash, who gets lured by her cutie mark to Discord himself. Discord makes Rainbow choose her loyalties. Either she can stay in the labyrinth and let her home crumble, or she could take her wings back, save her home, and cause every pony else to lose the game. Rainbow chooses to fly off, which causes the maze to collapse. The main 6 lose the game. Oh, and by the way, the elements were never in the maze. It was all just Discord messing with them and turning them against each other. So yeah, Twilight tries to solve the riddle again, while Discord turns the world to hell. Twilight figures out that the elements are back in Ponyville, specifically in the book from the start of the whole series. Oh, you're clever. Really, really clever. Of course, getting home is no easy task when day and night happen at will and the roads have become soap. And her friends aren't helpful.
Good boy, Angel. Mama's so proud.
I'm kinda scared now. They eventually make it to Twilight's library where they look for the book. And there's an extended fight scene which results in Twilight finding the elements inside of it. Also, Twilight realizes, finally, that her friends have become huge jerks. Oh, and she also realizes that they're missing Rainbow Dash.
Congratulations, Spike. You're the new Rainbow Dash. Now let's go!
Me? But what if she finds out I've been impersonating her? Ugh, that won't end well.
Episode. Make it happen. Don't care how. So we're in for a final confrontation. Except it doesn't work. Without Rainbow Dash, the real Rainbow Dash, the elements, I don't know, brain fart or something. And then Twilight breaks. Yeah, it's really sad. Twilight is so defeated that she decides that she wants to move away from Ponyville. But she's stopped by Spike barfing up a ton of letters. These are the letters that Twilight has been sending to Celestia, and wait a minute, there's clearly more than 25 in that pile. Are there some episodes you're not showing us? The letters help Twilight remember the benefits of friendship, and she turns back to normal. But seriously, I want to see those episodes at some point. Twilight goes and begins turning her friends back to normal, starting with Applejack, using some sort of spell that, quite frankly, I have no idea what it does. Yes, I know it turns Applejack back to normal, but I'm not sure why. Hey, if Discord can do it one way, then Twilight can do it the other way. Onward to Fluttershy, then to Rarity and Pinkie Pie. The only one remaining is Rainbow Dash, but she's not in her home. Instead, she's on a cloud which she believes is Cloudsdale. Okay then. So, Fluttershy politely suggests to Rainbow Dash,
Wondering if it's okay if I hold you down against your will for a little bit?
Huh, didn't take her for the type to be into BDSM. Rainbow Dash flies off, and we have a thrilling chase scene where Fluttershy actually manages to chase her down, and Applejack lassos her, and Rainbow Dash turns back to normal. So the main 6 go to confront Discord one more time. As soon as they do that, Discord levitates them closer, but Twilight teleports in and saves them.
I'll tell you what we've learned, Discord. We've learned that friendship isn't always easy, but there's no doubt it's worth fighting for.
Oh, gag. Fine, go ahead. Try and use your little elements, frenemies. Just make it quick.
Are you really that... Never mind.
What's this?
You're surprised that it worked. Discord turns to stone, and we have a homage to Star Wars. Okay, wow, talk about some serious mood whiplash. I mean, damn. We went from a boring party to essentially a demon that not only tried to take over the world, sort of did. Some people don't like the serious shift in tone, but I kinda do. I don't know, it just makes everything feel bigger and more important. And then there were the emotions. When Twilight turns gray, I think it's more intense than anything we've seen so far. Now let's talk about everyone's favorite part of the episode. The villain. Everyone loves Discord. He's the perfect blend of hilarious and diabolical. Usually they either go one way or the other, making the villain funny but incompetent or completely evil but a total killjoy. Discord has both elements down packed. He's definitely a huge step up from the underdeveloped Nightmare Moon. In fact, this seems almost like the opposite of the first season opener. The only thing saving that episode was the climax with Nightmare Moon. Here, the climax is the only thing that's wrong with it. I mean, Discord just stands there. He doesn't realize that none of the main 6 are gray, and even when they're shooting rainbow beams at him, he doesn't try to escape. I mean, come on! In fact, this anticlimax was incredibly easy to avoid. Discord levitates all the mean six close to him, Twilight teleports in, and being close enough, Harmony blasts him to stone. Anticlimax sort of avoided. Yes, I complained about Rarity's corruption making little to no sense, but in the grander scheme of things, I don't think it really matters. Discord could have done whatever the hell he wanted to. And Discord does make up for the flaws of the episode. Easily. And so do the corrupted ponies. It's funny in a really sick and twisted way watching them be assholes to each other. Yes, I am a terrible person, but I actually like the moral that it leads up to more than the humor itself. Friendship isn't always fun, and it isn't always easy, but it's definitely something worth fighting for. For that moral alone, and Discord, this episode gets a gold. But seriously, I want to see those other episodes sometime.
I'm just wondering if it's okay if I hold you down against your will for a little bit? Of course!
This episode starts with Twilight going through a checklist to make a checklist, and the first thing on that checklist is to make a checklist. Okay. One of the other items on that checklist is to pick up cupcakes at Sugar Cube Corner, and there Twilight begins letting her OCD-ness shine through. She's given 13 cupcakes and she wants to share them with her friends, but 13 doesn't divide evenly into 6. Wait, 6? Spike is standing right there, you know. You could give him the extra cupcake. But no, Twilight claims that the frosting from the extra cupcake is getting on the other ones, so she ends up...
Move some of this one to... I think I may have scooped too much. Oops, now those two have more. Let's just try this again. No, that won't do. Let me just put some here, then... No, that's not right. Maybe we're on this one.
Fixing them. Well, at least Spike gets the frosting. Later, the two of them realize that they don't have anything to report to Princess Celestia, which gets Twilight to completely flip out. Apparently, there's a deadline we never heard about that Twilight needs to send a letter to Celestia about friendship every single week. So if Twilight doesn't send Celestia a letter by sundown, she'll be tardy. And Twilight rides on Pinky's train of thought and comes to the conclusion that she'll be sent back to Magic Kindergarten because...
Twilight? Twilight! Huh? That is the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard! You're not gonna be sent back to Magic Kindergarten?
Wow, I like Spike in this episode. Twilight decides that the best way to get out of this is to solve a friend's problem by the end of the day. Oh, that's actually pretty logical. She first asks Spike, but he doesn't have any problems. So she runs into town in order to see if any of her friends have any problems whatsoever. She hears Rarity scream and checks up on her. Apparently,
This is the worst thing!
has happened to her. She lost a ribbon. Before Twilight is able to help, Rarity finds it immediately. So Rarity no longer needs help. And Twilight leaves before Rarity asks if there's anything bothering her. You know, it's the little moments like that. Next up, Twilight sees Rainbow Dash destroying Applejack's barn, and Twilight comes to the conclusion that Rainbow hates Applejack's guts. So Twilight stops Rainbow and decides to talk to her.
Oh, Rainbow Dash, you don't have to hide your feelings from me.
No comment. Twilight decides to do some psychological analysis of Rainbow, and hey, I told you guys she had glasses, but in all seriousness, Applejack asked Rainbow to destroy the barn because she wanted to put up a new one. And explosion. Finally, Twilight checks up on Fluttershy, thinking she can help her face a fear, only to find this happening.
Fluttershy?
Please don't hurt me. No, in actuality, she was giving the bear a chiropractic massage. Remind me never to get one, ever. With none of her friends needing any help, Twilight seems to have lost it, and she begins talking to her reflection. Luckily, Spike comes by and manages to snap her out of it, and it's a good thing too, because her delusions seem downright terrifying. Spike tells her to calm down and enjoy herself at the picnic. Not only do I love how Spike is written in this episode, I think this is my favorite characterization of him to date, and it's not even a Spike episode. We get to the picnic where Twilight's friends are just being themselves, and Twilight shows up. Somebody in the animation studio is having fun. Her friends, nervous, asks if she's okay, and Twilight says no. Of course, with the problem being what it is, Twilight almost being late for an assignment, they, quite frankly, have a realistic reaction. They think she's overreacting. Okay, yeah, the laughter's uncalled for, but in all honesty, what would you do? So Twilight leaves, angry with her friends. A bit later, we see that Twilight is in her own little world, and it's not a happy place. It's here she gets the idea to make a friendship problem, and she starts spying on the CMC. Then she, I'm not joking, telefrags their ball.
Girls? Oh, hi, Twilight. How's it going? Great. Just great. You three look like you're doing great, too. Looks like three good friends who obviously don't need the help of another good friend.
Okay, put her on the list. She tries to give the CMC her doll, and being that thing, they don't want it. Kids, you might want to get an adult. I don't think you're safe here. Twilight, being in the depths of insanity, casts something called the Want It Need It spell that makes every pony want the doll.
I want it. I need it. I really like her meaning. I want her. The Want It Need It spell works every time.
Wait, you've used it before? What is wrong with you? Besides the only holding on to a thread of sanity thing. Unfortunately, Twilight isn't able to break them apart from the doll, and she bumps into Big Mac. But when he sees the doll, he runs off with it. And every pony else who sees it wants it too.
Oh, what have I done?
You've screwed up, royally. The mob runs by Twilight's friends, and they obviously want an explanation. She explains, and then the sun goes down. Time is up. Princess Celestia appears and stops every pony from fighting over the doll, except for Big Mac, who runs off with it. Okay, then. Princess Celestia is not too happy with her student and demands to meet her in the library, and her friends realize that they should have taken Twilight's problems a little more seriously. Celestia assures Twilight that she is a good student, and then her friends burst in, apologizing for all the chaos.
You can't punish her.
It wasn't her fault. I'm listening.
Please, Your Highness, we all saw that Twilight was upset.
But we thought that the thing that she was worrying about wasn't worth worrying about. So when she ran off all worked up, not a single one of us tried to stop her.
As Twilight's good friends, we should have taken her feelings seriously and been there for her.
They convince Celestia not to punish Twilight on one condition, that each of them send Celestia letters when, and only when, they learn lessons. Oh, sweet God. Thank you, thank you, thank you. A million times, thank you. Now we're not going to have Twilight shoehorned into every single episode. I want to give this episode a gold just for that, but I can't. As you know, rule number 1 is that songs do not factor into my final rankings. Rule number 2, things that alter the dynamic of the show also do not factor into my final rankings, because divvying up duties, sprouting wings, or changing locations do not really have anything to do with the quality of the episode. Yes, there are exceptions, but they need to be extremely dire, and none of the current 65 episodes qualify. For now, I no longer have any animosity towards Twilight. All past transgressions are forgiven. Now for the review. Sort of. Before we begin, we need to talk about flanderization. This is what happens when you take one trait of a character and have it overtake their entire personality. Let's take a look at the namer of this trend. Ned Flanders, from The Simpsons. Yes, I'm picking on a show other than SpongeBob. In the earlier seasons, he was a good neighbor and just mildly religious. Now in season 20 million, he's a Christian zealot, or I don't know, he wants to be God if they'd done it again. I bring this up because this is the biggest criticism levied against this episode. People think that Twilight was flanderized here. Here's what I have to say. 1, she freaked out before, and no, it wasn't because Parasprites destroyed the town. Well, it was, but I always really thought it was because she was afraid of disappointing her mentor. Second point, this is our first truly character-focused episode, and they need to take one of these characters' defining traits and exploit it a little more to fully realize them. In Fluttershy's first episode, she'll be a little more meek. In Pinky's first episode, she'll be a little more unempathetic. And in Rainbow's first episode, she'll be a little bit more of an asshole. So yeah, I thought Twilight was completely in character. I already talked about how well Spike was written, and if he was written like this consistently, I would like him a lot more. Let's just say that I'm not looking forward to his episodes. The other characters all seem to do fine here. Yes, laughing was a little bit harsh, but Twilight was going on and on as if her house was about to explode or something. The laughs seemed to be more out of relief than anything else. And they do learn their lesson. You should at least consider what's making your friends go crazy. So there's that. And then there was the tone of this episode. I mean, this episode wouldn't be out of place in Courage the Cowardly Dog. And that's something I really love about this episode. Yes, I like this episode. A lot. I could tell that the writers, animators, and voice actors were having a ton of fun making Twilight go batshit crazy. And I had fun watching it. There's no reason I shouldn't give this episode a gold. Just one thing. Let's hope Twilight never goes rogue. If one day she decides to actually do some damage, I think everyone is screwed. Spike is waiting for Twilight to put on her costume, and she's dressed as Star Swirl the Bearded, father of the amniomorphic spell. Wait, amniomorphic spell? I just got it. There's an ongoing joke where ponies keep confusing her costume for other things. It gets a laugh, I guess. Oh, and Spike's a dragon. Some trick-or-treaters come to the door, and here we meet Pipsqueak. This is his first nightmare night ever, because he's 1 year old. Oh, and Pinky pops up. She's dressed as a chicken, and she's trick-or-treating. Twilight and Spike make it to the Nightmare Night Festival, and Spike has been gorging himself on candy. Pinky has as well, and Rainbow Dash seems to be having a different kind of fun tonight. She's disguised as a Shadow Bolt and is bent on pranking every pony. She scares the kids off, and Twilight scolds her. Twilight and Spike talk to Applejack, who is dressed as a scarecrow. They overhear the mayor giving a speech, because that's all she's good at. Look, she even leaves the work of telling us about Nightmare Night to Sakura. Huh, Sakura. Haven't seen her in a while. The kids place down some candy, and Princess Luna appears from the sky with some strange bat ponies. And every pony thinks that she's Nightmare Moon due to Pinky calling it out, and Pinky throws the town into panic. Luna herself doesn't help. In the past year, she's gotten a lot bigger, and now she speaks in a loud, booming voice. Every pony seems to be afraid of her because of those reasons, and you know, the whole nighttime forever thing. The only pony who decides to talk to her is Twilight. She knows that the elements of harmony brought Nightmare Moon back to good, and so she knows that there's nothing to be afraid of. She can see that the problems are being caused by using far outdated etiquette. Twilight talks to Luna, but she's still using the booming voice thing, which we come to know as the Royal Canterlot voice. Twilight tells her that that's why every pony was running off. Well, that's one reason. Since Luna is having a bit of trouble adjusting herself, they go to Fluttershy, who does not like Nightmare Night at all. So Twilight gets her out, but Fluttershy isn't able to get over her fears to help, and so she tries to run back inside. Slapstick! And for some reason that teaches Luna to talk softer. This works perfectly, until Pinky comes by and causes another uproar. Twilight convinces Luna to ignore them, and gets her to go to the Nightmare Night Festival. They run into Applejack, who seems to be afraid of Luna. Okay, I understand Pinky freaking out because she's Pinky, and other reasons we'll see later. And I get Fluttershy freaking out, but why Applejack? I mean, she usually has more common sense than Twilight. And then Applejack gets over her fear for pretty much no reason whatsoever. Applejack tells Luna that the best way to become liked is to have some fun. Luna plays a game where she tries to throw some spiders on a web, which is a scene so iconic that it inspired a Flash game called Luna vs. Fun. Next, Luna launches a pumpkin at a target. She actually seems to be fitting in quite nicely, until she sees Pip falling into the apple bobbing bucket. When she pulls him out, Pinky claims that Nightmare Moon is gobbling Pipsqueak, and every pony freaks out. And Luna has an outburst that causes the villagers to back away in fear. She tosses a spider in hopes that it gets the fun going. When it doesn't, she makes them real spiders which attack the villagers. Jesus, that is freaky as all hell. I know it doesn't last long, but this moment is scarier than all of Lesson 0. It's at least freaky enough to get everyone into full-blown panic, and for good reason. Eventually, she goes into full-blown shouting, getting every pony to stop. Now Luna's pissed. Because every pony has been afraid of her, she decides to cancel Nightmare Night forever, with glowing eyes and a stormy backdrop. And now the villagers are sad instead of running around like, I don't know, chickens with their heads cut off. Yes, I realize what metaphor I used. And Applejack brings up why.
We had everything going our way. Luna was happy. Every pony in town was happy. Now look at them.
If there's an episode that Pinky really gets on my nerves, it's this one. Every time Luna gets a little closer to happiness, Pinky just happens to be there and resets everything to 0. It makes the whole episode really frustrating. And this is just a nitpick, but Pinky looks really awkward in that costume. Something about the neck being a bit too long. Twilight isn't defeated yet, so she goes to find Luna, who is forlornly walking over a bridge. She tries to convince Luna that the ponies really aren't afraid of her, but she fails. So Twilight takes the next logical step and tracks down Pinkie Pie with candy. So Twilight ambushes Pinky in an alleyway and tells her not to shriek or scream. No comment. Twilight shows Pinky Luna, and she keeps her promise. just barely. Then we have what I think is a homage to E.T., until Rainbow ruins it by doing her pranking, causing Pinky to run off after laying an egg. The strangest thing about that scenario is that the egg is polka-dotted. Of course, this farce has gone on too long, so Twilight stops Pinky by force. And then Twilight claims that Luna doesn't want to gobble Pinky up.
Well, duh.
So why do you keep running away and screaming?
Sometimes it's just really fun to be scared.
Hey Pinky, I got a question for you. At any point, do you think that it got old doing the same thing to the same pony to the point of outrage? Even when Rainbow was startling ponies, she did it to different ponies, because if she didn't, she'd seem like one of the biggest assholes in Ponyville. So every pony is bummed out, but Sakura convinces the pony to give up some of their candy to the Nightmare Moon statue. And Nightmare Moon appears and purposely scares the shit out of every pony. Pip comes back and tells Luna that he liked to be scared, so he wants her to come back next year. So Luna brings Nightmare Night back, and we learn that you should pass your friendships on to others. A really good moral that kinda makes up for some of the frustration. Rainbow tries to zap Twilight, but Luna gets her first, and Pinky gets off scot-free. What are my feelings towards this episode? Mixed. I like the humor, and I really like the lesson, but there are just a bunch of things that bother me. Most notably is Pinkie Pie. I'm not going to argue whether being this juvenile was in or out of character for her, because you could really go either way, but it was just frustrating. I hate it when there's something easily preventable that just makes things go worse and worse. I mean, I'd feel better about the whole thing if she said sorry or something at the end, but she didn't. And then there's the point that he who must not be named brought it up. Why hasn't any pony been coaching Luna on how to behave in modern times? Were they just letting her act like this the whole time, going around shouting at ponies? It's as if she just became Luna again yesterday, and if that's the case, then every pony should recognize that she's Luna. Yes, sometimes it's fun to be scared, and sometimes there's just being an asshole. So, that leaves the question of what do I give this episode? I'm definitely not giving it a gold, but I will say this is an episode I like to go back to quite often. It's my favorite of the 3 holiday episodes. Look, I'll give it a silver for minor continuity hiccups and Pinkie Pie getting on my nerves. Just be careful the next method you use to prolong a problem, because I'm not going to be as lenient. This episode starts with Rarity talking in her sleep about pancakes. Maybe. She's awoken by smoke and obviously thinks that her house has caught on fire. She gets up in a hurry and runs downstairs only to find that her sister Sweetie Belle is making breakfast. Or trying to. It's here we meet Rarity's parents. As you can clearly see just from appearances alone, they're totally different than her. While Rarity speaks in a posh accent I can't identify, her parents speak in a Minnesota accent, or whatever the equestrian equivalent is. Where Rarity has the same reaction to burnt pancakes, toast, and juice. They actually think it's good. And this is totally fan speculation, but Rarity's father might be an Earth pony. Of course, he keeps his hat on at all times, so we never really can tell, but it is an interesting thought. Rarity agreed to watch Sweetie Belle for a week while her parents go on vacation. Sweetie Belle is excited to spend some time with her sister, but Rarity is a bit nervous and hesitant. It's not that she doesn't like her little sister, it's just that she has a lot to do. Wait, they're doing this realistically? Well, you got my attention. As soon as Rarity's parents leaves, she decides to clean up, let's be totally honest here, Sweetie's mess. Of course, Sweetie doesn't see it as a mess, and she points out that neither of them have eaten yet. So Rarity decides to make a proper breakfast, and Sweetie is eager to help out. Considering Rarity is a bit hesitant. She says she wants to get things started first, and ends up cooking the whole meal without Sweetie's help, and Sweetie points it out. Rarity tells her that her job is to put the garnish on the plate, and Rarity is desperate to make sure she doesn't screw that up either. Under Rarity's command, Sweetie Belle messes up and launches the food into the air, and gets it to land perfectly on the floor. Was that a success or a failure? Rarity has been busy cleaning up the mess that Sweetie made earlier, and realizes that she's late for something. So she asks Sweetie to take some dirty towels down to the laundry room. Sweetie is once again eager to help, and down there she spies a sweater, giving her the idea to wash all of the clothes. Unfortunately, the sweater is rare, expensive, and dry clean only. Rarity is starting to get understandably angry. By the way, this is how you correctly have one character propagate a problem. Unlike Pinky and Luna Eclipsed, who just wanted to have fun at another's expense, Sweetie Belle is genuinely trying to help. The problem is that she simply isn't any good at it. And so Rarity asks her to stay out of trouble. Sweetie tries to stay out of trouble by doing this. What the hell is she doing? It's apparent that she's incredibly bored and waiting for her sister to finish. I guess Apple Bloom and Scootaloo are busy or something. Sweetie then sees some crayons and papers and believes that she never got in trouble for drawing. So she gets to work drawing a picture, but it isn't long before she realizes that she needs something a little more than crayons. Sometime later, Rarity enters the room and freaks out. Those particular gems were extremely rare, and Rarity needed them for an extremely important client. Now Rarity has to go into town in order to find some more, and Sweetie wants to help again. But Rarity clearly has had enough help for one day. Give Rarity some credit. After she's done flipping out, she retains her cool and calmly tells Sweetie to put the art supplies away exactly as she found them. Sweetie is starting to question her usefulness until she stumbles upon a room that seems to be a disaster area. So she gets the idea to clean it up for Rarity. We all know that it's not going to work out as planned. Rarity comes home and finds out that the room is cleaned and Sweetie Belle was behind it all. And Rarity freaks out.
This wasn't a mess. It was organized chaos.
Yes, that is a real thing that artists use for inspiration or to keep things close, etc. Now Rarity is really angry, and she scolds Sweetie Belle, filling in our nightmare fuel quota for the episode. Finally, Rarity is on the verge of flipping out, but actually manages to keep her cool once again, simply saying that she needs some time alone. So Sweetie walks about the town and comes across a poster being held by Applebloom. Sweetie tells Applebloom that she wishes that she and Rarity could do something together, but she's tired of goofing things up. Applebloom suggests the Sisterhooves Social. Apparently, Applejack and her do it every year, and Sweetie loves the idea. Rarity does not. The contest is being held at Sweet Apple Acres, and according to Rarity, it doesn't sound very clean. I've heard worse excuses. Actually, Sweetie calls her out for that. They have not an argument, a disagreement. Sweetie wants them to go, and Rarity doesn't want to go, and it ends like this.
Then maybe I'll try the Sisterhooves Social without a sister. In fact, I think I'll try the rest of my life without a sister.
Now it's an argument, which leads them to the conclusion that they'd both be better off without a sister. Wow. Just wow. Sweetie decides to mope around Sweet Apple Acres just talking to Applejack and Applebloom. It's there she begins seeing how great Applejack and Applebloom are getting along when she gets invited to help them set up the Sisterhooves Social. Of course, Sweetie is still afraid of messing things up, but the two of them make chores look so fun that she can't help but join in. Then she gets a rotten apple on her horn. We cut back to Rarity, who's spending some time roaming around her room, and she realizes that the room is easier to navigate when it's clean, and she's able to find inspiration anyway. She realizes that if Sweetie Belle hadn't cleaned up the room, then she wouldn't have been inspired like this, but she's still a little bit grumpy about all the chaos earlier in the day. Back to Sweetie Belle. Applebloom is making some grape juice on an apple orchard when Sweetie Belle starts going on and on about how Rarity would never let messy stuff like grape juice anywhere near her stuff. Then Applebloom accidentally gets some grape juice on Applejack, and Sweetie pleads Applejack not to get mad. Applejack responds by attacking Applebloom. Just kidding. They begin roughhousing in the grape juice crusher. Meanwhile, Rarity is taking the clothes she designed to the washroom, and she sees the sweater that Sweetie ruined, and steps on Opal's tail. It's there she realizes the sweater could work for her cat. Yes, Rarity is learning that what Sweetie did wasn't really the end of the world. Of course, now Rarity's in that awkward place when you're trying to be mad at someone, but you can't really be mad at them. Meanwhile, again, Applebloom and Applejack are herding sheep, and Sweetie Belle sees how in sync the two of them are. Sweetie Belle starts thinking about how many times Rarity has let her down. Speaking of which, yes, the back and forth can get a little annoying, but it works for the effect they're going for. Rarity is making a dress with the gems she bought, but when she realizes that she's out, she goes looking for Sweetie's arts and craft project, and then she finds this. Rarity realizes that she's kinda screwed up. Melodramatically, of course. It eventually ends with her deciding that she needs to get her sister back. Rarity finds Sweetie Belle making marshmallows with Applebloom and Applejack. Unfortunately, Sweetie is still upset with her sister, or as she calls her unsister. Rarity apologizes, but as we learn, saying sorry doesn't always solve the problem. I know that's not the lesson this episode is trying to teach, but it's a good side moral. Sweetie admits that she's not better off without a sister. Applebloom made her realize that, and so she adopts Applejack as her new big sister. This is a surprise to Applejack as much as it is to Rarity and Applebloom. Sweetie then suggests that Applejack should be Rarity's sister, and teach her how to be a good sister. Wow, that hurts from here. Of course, Rarity might need the lessons. Sweetie isn't letting Rarity off the hook for this one until she learns her lesson.
We're still sisters, right?
Okay, that was pretty funny. Rarity seems to be taking at least part of what Sweetie said to heart and begins asking why Applejack made her look so bad. Applejack tells her that being sisters, or siblings in general, is about give and take. There's some metaphor about apple pie that's definitely a good metaphor, I just wish they used another one. Remember when I said that I thought they were putting in lines that could be taken out of context easily on purpose? Ask yourself what a shipping between Applejack and Pinkie Pie would be called. Like I said, someone on the staff is doing this on purpose. And the shipping thoughts get Rarity to realize what she has to do. The next day is the Sisterhooves Social. Applejack, Applebloom, and Sweetie Belle are there, and Sweetie is looking pretty forlorn. She's still incredibly disappointed in her sister. on Sister, and keeps complaining about her. Then, completely out of the blue, Apple Bloom lets Applejack borrow her sister, which sets Sweetie's world on fire. The two of them get ready to run in the big race. Shortly after the race begins, Applejack falls into some mud and comes out covered in the stuff, and she has contacts in now. Yeah, I don't think I'm spoiling anything when I say that it's Rarity there, proving she's a good sister, helping Sweetie Belle throughout the whole event, getting down and dirty the whole way. They don't win, though, and you know what? That's another really smart decision to top off every smart decision made throughout this whole episode. It's basically adding another message that winning isn't important as long as you're having fun with those you care about. Sweetie knocks off the hat to learn that it's Rarity in disguise, and Applejack was holding her breath the entire time. So after the spa, Spike writes, "Hey, I just realized there was no Twilight at all in this episode. Gives me kind of an empty feeling, you know? Sort of makes me feel sorry for all the things I said about her last season." Anyway, the moral is amazing. It's episodes like this that make the show what it is. This is one of the episodes that actually impressed me. Let's start with the obvious. They actually portrayed siblings realistically. Is anyone else kind of bummed that that can be considered refreshing? I mean, in every other show, they're either portrayed as the worst of enemies or constant antagonists. Yes, there's Gravity Falls, but this did it first, and don't hate me for this, but this episode did it better. Don't get me wrong here. I love a good Party of One style episode as much as the next guy, but personally, I'd prefer more episodes like this. I mean, any cartoon can make me laugh, but it's only those very rare ones that can actually make me care. And that seems to be what Cindy Morrow is good at. Yes, Cindy Morrow wrote this episode. You know, the one who wrote All's Well That Ends Well and the Showstoppers? The difference in quality is staggering. She's definitely the most confusing writer for me. I mean, her talent is clearly connection and emotional depth, but she rarely seems to use it, preferring to go with humor, which, I have to be honest, is her weak point. But like I said, not every episode needs to be funny. You can easily get a gold without it. Before I begin, I made a playlist showing off what I plan to review when I'm done with this MLP marathon. You could check it out on my channel. Now that the public service announcement is over, let's review the Cutie Pox.
And you are doing so well.
This episode starts with the Cutie Mark Crusaders trying to get their cutie marks. Again. This time it's bowling. Wait, how do ponies bowl if you need fingers to roll the ball? Oh, that's how. They stick the whole damn thing in their mouth. Bowling doesn't work out. Pardon me if I'm not at all surprised. Sorry if I sound a little bored, but I think I've already seen this episode 3 times. Look, even Apple Bloom is tired of this formula. Sweetie Belle and Scootaloo try to cheer her up through various shenanigans. Eventually, Apple Bloom starts walking into the Everfree Forest because I have no idea. I don't know why Scootaloo and Sweetie Belle don't try to stop her either. Yeah, they call her, but that's about it. So, Apple Bloom is walking through the deadly forest alone when she trips on a tree root and chips a tooth. Luckily, she runs into Sakura. While Sakura is fixing up a potion to fix Apple Bloom's tooth, we hear the lesson the CMC have been told time and time again. Soon, Apple Bloom's tooth is fixed, and then she asks Sakura if there's a potion that could give her a cutie mark. Sakura tells her no, and then she tells Apple Bloom about a flower that grants a heart's desire. And then Sakura leaves. What happens next is about as predictable as everything else in this episode. Sometime later, Apple Bloom seems to have her cutie mark, and she begins to proudly show it off to her classmates. Apparently, her talent is hula hooping. Hey Apple Bloom, I'm sure you'll make a killing doing that for the rest of your life. But, to her credit, she's really good at it. Good enough to get Shirley to cancel class and watch the show. If that's not out of character for Shirley, then she's one of the worst teachers ever. So Apple Bloom does a bunch of tricks in a scene that goes on for way too long. She's in the air when suddenly another cutie mark appears. Since there's never been a pony with 2 cutie marks before, every pony thinks she's a fraud. To prove she's not, she has to do her other talent, and she's actually good at it, making every pony think that she's some kind of prodigy.
Our friend is the most special pony ever.
Yes, people, remember that every pony is special, but some ponies are more special than others. Then we get another sequence of Apple Bloom showing off her talent. It also goes on for way too long. There are gags, some work, most don't. Either way, it's just filler. Later that night, her family is fawning over her and telling her how proud they are. But Apple Bloom is tired and eager to get to bed. In the middle of the night, Applejack hears tapping coming from Apple Bloom's room. It turns out now Apple Bloom has a third cutie mark, and she can't seem to stop tapping. Applejack takes her to Twilight, who diagnoses her with Cutie Pox. Of course, it takes her like a minute and a half to actually do it. Cutie Pox causes random cutie marks to appear all over the pony's body, forcing them to do all the tasks that came with them. And there's no known cure. Suddenly, Apple Bloom gets another cutie mark. Wait, was that what I think it was? Oh my god, it was an actual laugh. This episode had a good joke. Too bad it's 15.5 minutes in. Twilight and Applejack get the idea to go find Sakura, but Apple Bloom has another random cutie mark appear. And more appear. By the way, this is about another minute of filler. It ends with Spike telling some ponies that Apple Bloom has the cutie pox, getting the whole town into panic, and they all go into hiding. Suddenly, Sakura appears. What, you're not going to have Twilight and Applejack wander through the forest for a minute or two? Twilight tells Sakura that Apple Bloom has the cutie pox, and Applejack asks her if her zebra sense was tingling. How the hell does Applejack have the funniest lines in the episode? I mean, how does that happen? Sakura says that she's missing some of the ingredients she needed for her potions, and they mysteriously went missing after Apple Bloom's visit. Since Sakura is actually able to connect 2 and 2, she's able to figure out who did it. Unfortunately, Apple Bloom doesn't want to admit to anything. Sakura presents them with the seeds of truth, which can grow a flower that cures the cutie pox. The only way to get the flower to grow is to tell the truth. So, you're letting this go on as punishment until Apple Bloom tells the truth, huh? Just when I thought this episode couldn't get any more predictable. Wait, is that Pinky shaking? Does she have a deep dark secret? Can she save this episode?
Yesterday I told Mrs. Cake that I ate 2 corn cakes, but I really ate 3.
I guess that was a little funny.
Okay, 6. I ate 6 corn cakes.
That's a little better.
Make it stop! Oh, make it stop!
Okay, that was a good joke. And that brings our total to 3. Finally, Apple Bloom tells the truth and the seeds grow. Apple Bloom eats the flower and all of the cutie marks disappear. Then we get the moral.
Dear Princess Celestia, waiting for what your heart desires can be really hard, so you may try to take a shortcut. But this dishonesty never works because you didn't earn what your heart desired. The only cure is being honest with yourself and others. And that's something every heart desires.
And then this happens.
All good things come to those who wait. Well, I'll wait long enough.
Actually, trying new things is a good idea. It can help you discover who you truly are. I guess unless you're these 3. Oh god, was this episode tedious. No, I wouldn't exactly call it bad. A much better word is weak. Why? Well, for one, it's predictable. Hands up, did anyone think that Apple Bloom would have her cutie mark by the end of this? No, I didn't think so. A character can be doing the same thing over and over again as a sort of continuing running gag, but it can never sustain multiple episodes. At least, not on its own. There's also a ton of filler in this episode. Every scene is at least 3 times longer than it needs to be. Remember back when a cartoon episode had 3 shorts? Yeah, if you stripped away all of the filler in this episode, it wouldn't last for one of those. I mean, this might have worked as a subplot, but not as the main action. And it is ungodly boring. Like I said, only 3 jokes hit bullseye throughout the whole thing, and 2 of them came from a background pony. Wait, Applejack's not a background pony? Could have fooled me. But in this episode's defense, it doesn't do anything outwardly bad. There are no plot holes, everyone's still in character, it doesn't gross me out. So, like I said, I wouldn't call it bad. Just remember what they say about chains and weakest links. I'm gonna give this episode my not quite bad, but still pathetic 2-star rating. If it didn't have so much filler, then it might have gotten a 3-star rating. But remember, entertainment is supposed to be entertaining. Yes, I got the Big Lebowski reference. It doesn't help the episode. So after that last episode being an utter disappointment, can May the Best Pet Win turn things around? Let's find out. It starts with Rainbow Dash flying around when she comes across the Messiah of Owls, Owlicious. No, I don't have any remaining hatred of that bird from Owls Well that ends well. What makes you think that? Rainbow challenges him to a race, and because that owl is the godliest creature in Equestria, it can actually keep up. Then it gets Winona's head, which changes into Angel's head. And then it gets Gummy's body. And finally, Jesus! What the hell was that about? I mean, that thing is goddamn creepy. And since the scene is just a dream, it has no relevance to the actual plot. So it comes off as the writers trying to freak out the audience on purpose. Like I said, it was just a dream. Rainbow wakes up to find that all of her friends were playing with their pets in the park for a play date. They didn't tell Rainbow just because she didn't have a pet. And suddenly, Pinky's party of one breakdown becomes a lot more believable.
My friends are all lying to me and avoiding me because they don't like my parties and they don't want to be my friends anymore!
Or at least it makes it a lot more justified. I mean, what the hell is wrong with you guys? Rainbow might have just wanted to, I don't know, spend more time with you? Pet or no pet? Isn't that what the whole point of this is? To spend time as friends? Instead of being angry at her friends, Rainbow suddenly decides that she wants a pet, and then this happens. What the fuck was that about? I don't know if it was cute, creepy, or just weird. Whatever it is, it leads us to our first song of the season. The Find a Pet song. Really, that's the best name they could come up with. The song is okay. I don't really have any comment about it. The song gives me almost literally no reaction. It's not catchy, so it doesn't get in your head. There's no chorus, so it doesn't come off as memorable. The only real feeling I have towards this song is curiosity. Why was this song nominated for an Emmy? Even if you like this song, I'm sure you'll agree that there are better candidates, like every other song of this season. Context doesn't really help me like this song either. It's just the two of them going down the line of pet selections and Rainbow deciding that she'll host a competition. And since it goes on for 3 minutes, it comes off as filler. It's shiny filler, but filler nonetheless. Whether you like or dislike the song, just remember it doesn't factor into my final ranking of the episode. Sometime later, the competition begins, and Rainbow is already proving that she has no idea what a pet is. She's going drill sergeant on them. This is borderline verbal abuse.
Any questions?
Yeah, I got one. Why do these animals want to be your pet in any realm of plausibility? They've probably never seen you before, and if this is your first impression, it's not a good one. Even her friends are calling her out. Oh wait, no, they're talking behind her back about it. At least Twilight and Applejack are. Fluttershy is, for no reason at all, pushed in a tortoise after Rainbow clearly stated that she wanted a pet that could fly. Place your bets, ladies and gentlemen, on who you think is going to win. You get doubles for the bat, triples for the hummingbird, and nothing at all for the tortoise, because of course the tortoise is going to win. I mean, can you make it any more obvious? I guess they could if they went with the original title of this episode, The Tortoise and the Mare, which got rejected because it was considered too spoilery. You know, I like the spoiler title better, sort of like it's lampshading this whole thing. So Rainbow debriefs her potential pets on the, she calls them games, that they'll be doing. There are a bunch of categories like speed, agility, style, coolness, awesomeness, and radicalness. We get a montage of each of the games. Each one of them gets a candidate for later, and the tortoise fills every single one. You know what this reminds me of? That soccer mom who forces her kid into a sport, even though he has absolutely no talent in it, and hopes that it'll boost his self-esteem, except he keeps on losing every single game, and eventually he starts doubting his own self-worth. You know what that means, right? It means that every single one of the main 6 in this episode is a total asshole. Twilight, Rarity, Pinkie Pie, and Applejack for having these get-togethers behind Rainbow's back, and not feeling sorry about it. Rainbow for flat-out abusing animals, and Fluttershy for 1, letting this abuse happen, best animal caretaker in the world, and 2, forcing animals into it. Speaking of forcing animals into dangerous scenarios, the bat, the owl, the falcon, and the eagle make the final cut and are forced into a race through Ghastly Gorge, a place that is made out to be extremely dangerous. Why are you allowing this? And the tortoise tags along anyway, because he's a Mako sadist? Either that or Rainbow has a corn chip in her mane, and he's been trying to get it this whole time. You know, I think I would like this episode a lot more if that was the result. The corn chip one, not the Mako sadist. But in all seriousness, that tortoise is a Mako sadist. They go through the gorge while Rise of the Valkyries plays. Haven't heard that one in a while. It's easily the most exciting part of the episode, but it's hard to enjoy when the animals get repeatedly stuck in dangerous terrain. The falcon even leaves some brambles with a stick stuck to his wing. Eventually, Rainbow ends up getting stuck under a boulder, and all of her pet candidates leave her behind. I'd be lying if I said that I was surprised. Oh no, she's got a couple of feathers stuck under a rock and her friends are nearby expecting her back really quickly. Will she get out of this one? I don't know. After how Rainbow's been acting, she kinda deserves a little timeout. I'm sorry, but Rainbow's just been terrible in this episode. Eventually, the tortoise comes around and lifts up the rock. Wow. Not only can the tortoise lift 1,000 times his own weight, he can jump the shark without a sweat. What has Fluttershy been feeding you? Steroids? There's breaking the suspension of disbelief, and then there's this. Yeah, the tortoise knocked over Opal's cat house earlier in the episode. That was a cat house. This is a 2-ton boulder. The animals cross the finish line, and Rainbow's friends begin wondering where she is. The tortoise crosses the finish line with Rainbow, and by Rainbow's rules, that means that he wins. You know what would reinforce the lesson in this episode better? If Rainbow didn't care about the rules and picked the tortoise as her pet anyway because he saved her life. Possibly. Maybe. And since the tortoise could take anything thrown at him, she names him Tank. I suppose a good question is, how the hell does Rainbow know what a tank is? Go, fanfiction writers, go! I've got to do the actual review part. This'll be fun. I'm gonna go out on a limb here and say that this is the this is the most divisive episode in the series. In an episode like Magical Mystery Cure, you either really like it or you really don't. This episode is all over the place. Some people like it, some people hate it, and some people don't care about it. Some people even call this episode their favorite. I wondered why such a divide, then it hit me. This is a prime example of a so what conflict. What do I mean? Let's run down a short list here. In Storm of the Century, parasprites are devouring the entire town. In Party of One, Pinky's friends might be avoiding her, a theory that now has merit. In Look Before You Sleep, 2 friends are being held hostage by a deranged nutball. In May the Best Pet Win, Rainbow Dash wants a pet. That's it. People who like this episode. If it wasn't Rainbow Dash, say it was Joe Schmo who wanted a pet, would you care? That being said, Rainbow Dash is part of a wider series, so it's a lot easier to care. So, I understand if you like this episode. Unfortunately, this episode goes out of its way to make me not care by turning everyone into assholes. I mean it. There's probably a lack of oversight, but I end up hating everyone in this episode, even though I think they were only trying to get me to hate Rainbow. Yeah, I think turning Rainbow into an asshole here was intentional, because that would be the only realm of possibility that the next episode could work. Oh, God, I just realized what episode was next. I'll deal with that problem later. Right now, I have to deal with Charlotte Fullerton, who I'm going to declare, right now, my least favorite writer on the show. Yes, I like her less than Dave Polsky, less than Meriwether Williams. Yes, she wrote Suited for Success, but now she has 3 failures to her name. Don't hold much hope for Baby Cakes either. So yeah, I'm failing this episode. Why? For starters, everyone is an asshole. Everyone. Rainbow was abusing animals throughout the whole episode, and her friends either didn't care or pushed them into it. Yeah, that's why I'd said one sentence about it to Applejack, but that went absolutely nowhere. Was that supposed to put them on a high horse? It doesn't. Watching animals being abused isn't as bad as actually abusing them, but it's still bad. This conveys the message that abusing animals is okay. One sentence doesn't cut it, especially when you have the animal caretaker allowing this to happen. On a story level, it's insultingly predictable. We all knew the tank was going to win, even if we didn't see the toy. On a humor level, it's mediocre. Most of the jokes were variations on confusing a tortoise for a turtle, and unless it's a mine turtle, I don't care. If you like this episode, that's fine. Oh yeah, what the fuck was this about? So, this is it. This is the episode that many believe is the worst in the entire series. Pretty much every critic has panned it to oblivion, so there's almost no point in me reviewing this episode. But I made a promise. I said I'm going to review every single episode of the show. But to avoid redundancy, this is going to be a different kind of review. Instead of giving a score, because you already know the answer, we're going to be asking ourselves a couple of questions. Number 1, is this episode really that bad? Number 2, if so, where does it fall apart? And number 3, what was our new writer Meriwether Williams thinking when she wrote this episode? Let's begin. This episode starts at BronyCon? No, it's actually the Rainbow Dash fan club, so yeah, BronyCon. Alright, problem number 1 here is that this intro sequence has absolutely nothing to do with the episode. There are just some kids fawning over Rainbow Dash. You could cut it out entirely, and this episode wouldn't be better or worse off. But, to this episode's defense, it isn't the only episode that does this, so that's not the problem. The episode proper begins with Rainbow Dash swimming in the clouds, trying to relax, when she hears some pony calling for help in a well.
I'm Rainbow Dash, and I'm here to rescue you!
I really should be asking who she's talking to, but this episode goes to great lengths to parody superhero movies. I know it's odd and it doesn't fit too well into the series, but it doesn't really bother me. Rainbow dives into the well and saves the child, and for some reason all of her friends have gathered around, along with a crowd of other background ponies, which makes no logical sense. Rainbow was up on a cloud, and if she heard the pony calling for help, they would have heard it too. Wow, this is going to be a long review, isn't it? Every pony in the crowd is so happy that they didn't have to face the consequences of passing by a screaming child in a well that they cheer Rainbow on, and Rainbow seems to like the attention. We cut to the next scene where a baby stroller is rolling down a hill and Rainbow Dash rushes in to save it. Her being the only pony able to do so here is a lot more believable because she is the fastest flyer in all of Ponyville. Every pony starts cheering again, inflating Rainbow's ego enough to get her to tell a very sick joke.
Oh no! There's something wrong with the baby! She's not cheering for every pony's favorite hero, Rainbow Dash!
That wasn't funny. Paparazzi start taking pictures of her. Rainbow's friends come around and begin talking behind her back once again. Why have they been so hesitant to just talk to Rainbow? I will admit that it's not so bad here because they're saying mostly good things about Rainbow. We cut again to another disaster. A balcony at the elderly home breaks and Rainbow rushes in to save them, and it seems the whole town has just come out to see her, and Rainbow is taking in all of the cheering. Her friends come around and seem to be taking concern. Okay, there's nothing terrible about this episode yet. Let's keep watching. Rainbow is telling her stories to a bunch of kids at Sugar Cube Corner, and her friends are getting a little upset.
Pretty awesomely heroic that day. That day. Awesomely heroic that day and awesomely arrogant ever since.
Wait, play that again.
Thinking back on it, I acted pretty awesomely heroic that day. That day. Awesomely heroic that day and awesomely arrogant ever since.
So, at least a couple of days have passed. Transitions! Use them! The way you've edited this episode makes it seem like Rainbow's bragging right after she saved the elderly, which she has every right to do. But according to that one line, this has been going on for quite a while. Which, yeah, dealing with that would get kind of annoying. So this answers question number 2. This is where the episode falls apart, by not conveying that this has been going on for quite some time, and forcing us to assume that her friends tried to talk to her. You cannot leave out details like that. Oh yeah, Spike is ghostwriting Rainbow's autobiography. You know, that's actually kind of funny. There's an idea for a joke there, but it was really poorly timed and happened too quickly. Humor is all about timing. And yes, Rainbow is probably at her worst here with an ego inflated to the point of popping, and her friends are giving each other aside glances. Sometime later, or maybe sometime next year, I don't know, Merryweather didn't tell me, Rainbow Dash is signing autographs when she hears some pony calling for help. A hot air balloon is plummeting to the rider's doom, and Rainbow's caught up in her own ego. After signing some more autographs, Rainbow Dash chases after the balloon. Suddenly, a challenger appears, hopping across rooftops and saving the rider of the balloon, allowing Rainbow to plummet with it.
Holy turnips! That pony came out of nowhere!
Holy turnips? What kind of euphemism is that? Oh yeah, Twilight is in the audience and looks totally surprised. Wait, I think there are a bunch of scenes we didn't see. The mayor comes out and calls the masked hero Mare-Do-Well. Good thing too. Really fits the M emblem on her costume. Couldn't imagine how awkward it would be if she picked a name that started with a different letter. And Rainbow doesn't seem to like this new challenger. There's another disaster on the same broken road from earlier. You'd think they'd fix that considering it's proven to be a hazard twice now. Rainbow tries to save them, but fails. So Mare-Do-Well saves the people and disappears into the day. Rainbow begins to doubt herself, now knowing that Mare-Do-Well is stronger than her. Another disaster, this time at a construction site. Did Ponyville suddenly become Townsville? What's next? A giant monster plagues the town? Just like the previous 2 times, Mare-Do-Well comes in, upstages Rainbow, and leaves. This is a redundant scene. It is unnecessary. As in, you could get rid of it and the plot would be the same. There are so many redundant scenes in this episode. It wouldn't be so bad, except they're cutting out information we need for scenes we don't. Rainbow finds a leak at a hydroelectric dam. Okay, I know that Ponyville has always been anachronistic, but it's really distracting in this episode. Obviously, it's the least of this episode's problems, so we'll pocket it for now. Rainbow Dash blocks the leak and is once again looking for attention, and the dam bursts. Of course it does. Just like a fruit stand must always be knocked over, a dam must always burst. Rainbow grabs a log and comes face to face with Mare-Do-Well. She uses magic to fix the dam, once again upstaging Dash, and once again, Mare-Do-Well disappears. Rainbow then realizes that Mare-Do-Well's a unicorn, meaning that she can fly, and Mare-Do-Well can't. Except Mare-Do-Well can. Yeah, apparently she's an alicorn now. The most interesting thing about this scene is not the fact that Mare-Do-Well seems to be an alicorn, it's everyone's reaction to it. No one is calling bullshit about it, which means it was this episode that canonized more alicorns than Celestia Luna, not a Canterlot Wedding. We cut to Sugar Cube Corner, where Rainbow is all bummed out, and all of her friends are singing Mare-Do-Well's praises. Twilight claims that Mare-Do-Well did some really good magic. Rarity says that she likes Mare-Do-Well's costume, and Applejack is talking about Mare-Do-Well's humility. When Rainbow has an outburst, all of her friends laugh at her. So in retaliation, Rainbow claims that she can be a better hero than Mare-Do-Well. Unfortunately, I guess, there are no more disasters happening, which gets Rainbow more and more impatient. Then she sees Granny Smith trying to cross the road, and Rainbow shoves her across. A disgruntled Granny Smith beams Dash in the head with her purse, claiming that she didn't want to cross the street in the first place. Except in the last shot, she was already starting to cross the road. Rainbow sees some pony trying to open a jar of peanut butter, and she tries to open it, and fails. You know what? That's actually kind of funny. Eventually they get the jar open, and Rainbow is trying to milk this epic feat of heroism. Then Rainbow begins mowing the lawn, and when she tries to claim that as another great feat, every pony in the park shuns her. Ponyville is really fickle. Just because Mare-Do-Well is around doesn't change what Dash already did before her. I guess they just forgot. Rainbow begins wallowing in sadness on top of a rain cloud.
What about forget about me so easily.
Didn't I just ask that question? Wow, now the episode is pointing out its own flaws. By the way, that's still a legitimate question. And the scene continues to be sad until Scootaloo comes around and tells Rainbow Dash about a parade in Mare-Do-Well's honor. Rainbow decides to go to the parade, seemingly having an idea. Once again, it's conveyed poorly. So Mare-Do-Well appears at the parade and Rainbow confronts her, threatening her to take off her mask. Then Mare-Do-Well runs away because I have no idea. No, really, I don't know. With all those feats of heroism before, I'm sure Mare-Do-Well could defend herself and make Dash look like an even bigger fool. But she doesn't, and she runs off into the city, which has become much more urban and eerily abandoned. I mean, this is a freaking ghost town. Eventually, Rainbow Dash catches Mare-Do-Well, and it's found out to be Pinky in disguise. Another Mare-Do-Well appears, and it happens to be Twilight. A third Mare-Do-Well appears. This one is Applejack. They were all playing Mare-Do-Well at different times, in order to teach Rainbow a lesson in humility.
Don't you want me to be a hero?
Of course we want you to be a hero.
But a real hero doesn't brag.
Which is why you weren't opposed to a citywide party in your honor. Guys, guess what? You're gonna think I'm nuts. Like, fucking nuts. But I don't hate this episode. I actually kinda like it. Oh, don't get me wrong, I'm still failing this episode. But let me do a little defending first. Part of the reason I like this episode is that I was watching really closely and able to catch that line. It made the main five a little more justified. Then again, they were bragging about their own accomplishments about Mare-Do-Well, making them seem like hypocrites. Can I ask you, just for a second, to pretend that the main six weren't Mare-Do-Well, what realistically would Twilight, Rarity, and Applejack compliment Mare-Do-Well on? Did they take it too far? Absolutely. There was no reason for Fluttershy to fly around as Mare-Do-Well, but sometimes people take things too far. It's gonna happen. If that someone is supposedly a friend, then it's only natural to think you have more leeway with them. To answer question number 1, no, this episode isn't really that bad. It's still bad. Like I said before, the humor is poorly executed, we have redundant scenes instead of scenes that actually show the main six talking to Rainbow Dash about her bragging. Remember the golden rule of show don't tell. The anachronisms get a little distracting, and it's abundantly clear that Rainbow doesn't get the moral at the end. You've heard it all before. You know about this. Instead of saying something that's been said 1,000 times, I think I'll say something new. This episode is not. And even if it was, if this is the worst thing the show has produced, the writers are doing pretty damn good. I mean, it's not an unholy abomination of hell like the Splinter. It's not blatantly offensive like Not All Dogs Go to Heaven. Nor does it shit all over established continuity like The Principal and the Pauper. Honestly, people talk about this episode like it made their eyes melt. That brings up another question. Why is this episode so hated? I don't really know, besides the fact that nearly every critic has panned it, but I do have a few theories. First of all, Rainbow Dash was the fan favorite at the time this episode aired, and it took a heavy shot at her personally. Secondly, this episode was the topic of one of Paleo's few negative reviews, and his word carries a lot of weight in the Brony community. Not that there's anything wrong with that, he thoroughly explained why he didn't like the episode. Third, this episode dips into each of the major flaws, so there's sort of something to hate for everybody. It has a poorly executed moral, and feeling Pinky Keen has a worse moral. It's horribly mean-spirited. Putting your hoof down is much more mean-spirited. Each of the main six are mean. In May the Best Pet Win, and in Ghostbusters they're all reprehensible. The dialogue is horrible. Ghostbusters.
They don't call me Rainbow and Dash for nothing.
It's not at all funny. Once again, Ghostbusters. They vilify a main character, and All's Well That Ends Well Spike is vilified by taking him out of character. I never for a second believed that this isn't how Rainbow would act, especially after her performance in the last episode. That just leaves one question left. What the hell was Meriwether Williams thinking when she wrote this episode? I actually don't blame everything that was wrong with this episode on her, like the ghostwriter joke. If a little more effort was put into timing, which is done by the director, then it would have worked. But Meriwether does take the brunt of the blame. The biggest problem is that Meriwether accidentally made Rainbow way too sympathetic. If she kept her egotistic behavior from the second act throughout the whole episode instead of being this sad and defeated, then the actions of the other main five would be a lot easier to watch. Remember what I said about Rainbow in the previous episode? That's some pony who deserved to be taken down a peg, granted by anyone but the ponies who did it, considering they weren't exactly angels either. But this Rainbow Dash deserves to be hugged. If you still hate this episode, I'm not going to stop you. There's definitely a lot to hate, but this is one episode you will not see on my own personal worst list. Now that I have my new setup, I can presumably review episodes without getting flagged, so I won't need to split the videos in two. With that being said, let's review Sweet and Elite. This episode starts with Rarity coming to Canterlot to pick up fabrics. Twilight had asked Celestia to provide her with a room, and she was quick to oblige. While out on the town, Rarity decides that she'll thank Twilight by making a dress for her upcoming birthday party. Two upper-class ponies ask Rarity where she got her hat. Before she could say anything, this guy, Hayseed Turnip Truck, says that he knows Rarity and outs that she's from Ponyville, which the upper-class ponies don't seem to like. Apparently Ponyville is some small one-horse town that no one really cares about. That's an interesting idea I haven't seen too often. Rarity channels her emotions into creativity and creates a design for Twilight's dress. While picking up the materials, she bumps into another pony. This is Fancy Pants, and we can assume he's important because Rarity already knows his name. Rarity lets it slip that she's staying at the castle, and that she knows the princess. He becomes impressed. Just wait until he finds out that Rarity helped save the world, twice. Fancy Pants invites Rarity to attend the Wonderbolts Derby with him. She says that she's not sure, and so she goes to debate to herself in her room. Now let's bring up May the Best Pet Win. I gave that episode a harsh review because Rainbow Dash did some pretty horrible actions. In this episode, Rarity also does some pretty horrible actions too. However, this episode shows the way to do it correctly. Rainbow Dash flat out yelled at the animals and put them in dangerous situations without any debate, while Rarity is battling her conscience the whole way through. There is the argument that Rainbow didn't know that doing this is wrong because she definitely doesn't give any clues to it. But come on, Rainbow is an adult. Are you seriously telling me that she didn't know it was wrong? If that's true, she's the dangerous type of idiot. Rarity clearly has reluctance here, and she doesn't go gung-ho into the actions either. Eventually, Rarity finds the all-too-common procrastinator excuse, "I'll have time to do it later." I'll be honest, I don't have the moral high ground on Rarity here. She goes to the Wonderbolts Derby and seems to have some knowledge of the Wonderbolts, from Rainbow of course. To save herself from embarrassment, Rarity lies and claims that Rainbow Dash is the Wonderbolts trainer. The upper-class ponies are impressed by this and invite Rarity to several social gatherings. Unfortunately, this would cut into her time to make Twilight's dress. She hesitates at first, but eventually caves in. This leads us to our song for the episode, Becoming Popular, the pony that every pony should know. Once again, where May the Best Pet Win did everything wrong, this episode does everything right. First of all, I like the song a whole lot more. It doesn't factor into my review, but I'm just saying. No, the real reason this song is better is because there's actually a reason for it to be here. The events in the song were set up beforehand, it's not filler, and these scenes probably would be boring without the song. Unfortunately, all of these events made Rarity too exhausted to do anything, so she falls asleep after putting the bare basics of a dress together. The next day, Rarity is about to leave when she gets invited to the Canterlot Garden Party, which happens to be the same day as Twilight's birthday party. After some debate, Rarity writes a letter to her friends claiming that Opal has gotten very sick and they can't travel. There are 2 points of view you can have here. Either Rarity has just done an extremely horrible action and has lost all likability, or this episode has been doing a good enough job at conveying her train of thought and her inner debate as she attempts to justify this. I'm going with the latter. After all, she's gotten a taste of the livelihood she would like to have, and it seems like something hard to leave behind. Of course, this episode would be terrible if things were made easy for Rarity. Her friends come and surprise her by bringing the party to Canterlot just for Rarity. On top of that, Twilight loves the half-made thing that Rarity put together in 5 seconds. Can't decide if she's being stupid or realistically naive. By the way, that soundbite is reused from Griffin the Brush Off. Please stop making the recycling obvious. Do you know what justifies Rarity's actions for me in this episode? Guilt. Also, this is hilarious.
I'm so sorry about this. She's resting on the bed. Poor baby.
But now we have 2 parties, so we get the old sitcom cliche where Rarity has to go back and forth between them, getting increasingly disheveled. It gets a laugh, and it eventually culminates to the point where Rarity brings in a croquet mallet. It seems that the lying has to stop, until Twilight reaches a conclusion of her own.
I hadn't realized you were such a savvy business pony. You must understand. All of those ponies look so posh. And with the Grand Galloping Gala coming up, I bet you could totally get some of them to buy your dresses. Very smart.
No, I don't think she's being an idiot here. After all, Rarity is one of her best friends. Why would she even think about not attending her birthday party? Speaking of parties and their attendance, I have to ask this question. Where is Spike? Twilight is his boss, master, owner? I'm gonna go with Guardian. Why would he be missing her birthday? Because the library needs watching? As bad as Look Before You Sleep was, it at least acknowledged why Spike wasn't there. Please don't pretend we don't notice or care about him, because some of us do. Back to the episode. The rest of the main six decide to go to the garden party, and I actually have a theory as to why. It's Rainbow who brings up the idea, and she's been giving Rarity skeptical looks the whole time. I think she's letting on more than we know. For some reason, Rarity is really nervous about her friends crashing the party. I'm not sure why. I mean, what's the worst that could happen?
Well, it can't get any worse. Going to love me!
Sweet Celestia, stop them! So all of her friends cause not that level of chaos, but they do create quite a bit of an uproar. Eventually, Fancy Pants stops Twilight from, seizing, and asks her where she got her dress. Twilight lets it out of the bag that Rarity is from Ponyville, and Rarity finally tells the truth. Believe it or not, this is exactly what makes everything that Rarity has done excusable, for two reasons. One, no one got hurt, that's kind of important. And two, she actually learned her lesson. That's what's important. It doesn't really matter if she gets punished or not. Speaking of which, Fancy Pants helps Rarity save face.
I, for one, find them charmingly rustic. And I think the dress you made for your friend is lovely.
This guy.
I dare say every mare in Canterlot will be wanting one.
Oh, I'd like to place my order right now.
I think you should get two.
Wait, what? Did he just ask for okay, I'll ignore that comment so I can give my final analysis. We're finally back on track. I've reviewed an episode that I can safely call good. The biggest problem most people seem to have with this episode is that Rarity doesn't get punished. First of all, she sort of does get some comeuppance with her friends crashing her party, and I still do think that Rainbow is behind it. Secondly, the point of punishment is to make sure someone has learned their lesson, and Rarity has clearly learned her lesson. Now, the only problem I see with this episode is that Spike's absence is really noticeable. But that's not enough to stop me from giving this episode a 5-star gold rating. Recently, I declared Charlotte Fullerton is my least favorite writer on the show, mostly because she only wrote one episode that I can reasonably describe as good. All of her other episodes are a horrid mess. Spoilers for my future reviews, by the way. That got me to thinking who I can declare my favorite writer, and so I thought it'd be fun to do a top 5 list. There's only one rule. I can't put in a writer who only did 2 episodes at the time of writing. So no Corey Powell, no Chris Savino, or no Lauren Faust, because from the 2 episodes that they did, I can't properly gauge their writing style. And since there's going to be no Charlotte Fullerton either, that gives us just 6 candidates. So the one who doesn't make my list is the unofficial number 6. Just remember that this is all opinion, so don't accept anything I say here as fact. We're not waiting any longer.
Think we can do it, but we need to work together. We have to get this right. Yes, we have to make them see. We can save the crystal ponies with their history. Oh, we have
My top 5 favorite writers of My Little Pony: Friendship is Magic.
We can save the crystal ponies with their history.
I honestly don't know what to think about her. She's written the most episodes, but I still can't gauge her writing style. She's got some really good episodes like The Best Night Ever and A Dog and Pony Show, but she's also got some bad ones like Mystery on the Friendship Express or The Cutie Pox. For the most part, her episodes hit middle ground for me. That's not a bad thing. We need some of the standard episodes to mix up the really good hard hitters, and give us a breather between them to make their impacts even better. My least favorite episode of hers is The Cutie Pox, which is 18 minutes of filler, and yes, I counted. That tells me that I only don't like her episodes when she's being lazy, but when she tries her hardest, we get something like my favorite episode of hers, The Best Night Ever, which mixes together 6 plots to a cohesive whole, and makes it funny and entertaining the whole way through. You'd think she'd be best with the simple plots though, the main thing she writes about. I hear she's coming back in season 4, and I really don't have much of an opinion on that. The only real expectation I have of her is that none of her episodes will be horrible, because currently none of them are.
Oh, we have to get this right. Yes, we have to make them see. We can save the crystal ponies with their history.
I'm sorry, 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 I'm sorry. In my personal opinion, Dave Polsky is the funniest writer on the show, and he loves to use that little talent of his. Every episode of his lines up with some of the funniest in the entire series. Unfortunately, that leads to his biggest problem. He seems to ignore everything else. His stories aren't the best, and his morals? Yeah, he wrote Feeling Pinky Keen, but none of his other morals got down to that level. And I loved Feeling Pinky Keen, which I still consider his worst effort. Polsky has the uncanny ability to make terrible episodes that I absolutely love. Over a Barrel I don't consider bad, but a lot of people do, and I'm not really sure why. I made a lot of jokes about drugs in that episode because it felt a lot like a stoner comedy, so if you don't like that episode, I suggest watching it while high if I didn't believe that drugs were bad. Too Many Pinkie Pies is in my top 5, no joke. A lot of people seem to hate that episode because they think Pinkie was acting out of character. There's only one response I have to say to that. No, 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 and no. In that episode, Pinkie, the real Pinkie, was acting entirely as she should have. Games Ponies Play seems to be everyone's guilty pleasure of Season 3, sort of like Mystery for Season 2, and that's me included. I really like that episode despite the story being absolutely shit. And finally, Keep Calm and Flutter On, which I absolutely love and I absolutely hate at the exact same time. Kinda perfect for an episode involving Discord. So yeah, he's good with humor, but bad with stories. And if he teamed up with my next choice, we'd probably have a perfect episode.
To get this right, yes, we have to make them see. We can save the crystal ponies with their history.
Before you say anything, Cindy Morrow has written some of my favorite episodes on the show. Hurricane Fluttershy is in my top 3, and Sisterhooves Social isn't too far behind. That being said, she's also written some of the worst episodes in the show, like The Showstoppers or All's Well That Ends Well, and in Season 3, she just seemed to be on autopilot doing things by the numbers. To be honest, she's extremely confusing. She's amazing at emotional connections, but she often relies on humor, which is pretty much the only thing that she's not good at. I don't need an episode to be funny, but I do need an episode to know what it wants to do and actually do it well, just like she was able to do with Hurricane Fluttershy or Sisterhooves Social. That's probably what made One Bad Apple such a disappointment for me. With Sisterhooves Social, she broke out all of the cliches by having siblings act naturally and realistic. In One Bad Apple, she went for the most tired and cliched moral of them all. If you're being bullied, you should just tell an adult. I've got a lot to say about that episode when I actually get around to reviewing it, so I'll just say this for now. That's where the moral begins, not where it ends. But like I said, it's cliche. So literally every cartoon I've seen dealing with bullying has come to the exact same result. Her other big disappointment was Apple Family Reunion, which was not only on autopilot, but on autopilot in the strangest position. There's a very fine line whether or not I like an episode, and she wrote it the whole way through. Wait, wasn't this a positive list about my favorite writers? Oh yeah, Hurricane Fluttershy. Hurricane Fluttershy is an absolutely perfect episode. Not just for this show, but a perfect episode in general. Not only is the moral well handled, but it's extremely relevant, and the episode still touches my emotions after seeing it dozens of times. Not to mention that it has the perfect representation of each of the characters. I mean, this isn't Fluttershy. This is Fluttershy. This isn't Rainbow Dash. This is Rainbow Dash. Take a guess who isn't appearing on this list. I keep thinking there's an episode I'm forgetting. Oh yeah, Read It and Weep, an episode full of intense action, and one that really surprised me with what they could actually get away with. It gave me a very nagging question though that to this day I still can't answer. While accepting reading is definitely a good moral, what the hell does it have to do with friendship? Is there anything that would put Cindy Morrow higher on this list? Absolutely. Less of this, and much more of this.
We have to get this right. Yes, we have to make them see. We can save the crystal ponies with their history.
Though he gets the reputation as the fan favorite, he's not my personal favorite. Don't get me wrong, I haven't seen an M.A. Larson episode yet that I didn't like, but there's one writer who I like even more, for other reasons. And if you've been paying attention, you already know who my number 1 is. As for Mr. Larson, he's got the most interesting ideas, and he, for the most part, runs with them. Every episode of his, you can be sure you're seeing something totally new, with possibilities that you yourself wouldn't have thought about. That's probably why my least favorite episode of his is the Super Speedy Cider Squeezy 6000, because it's just so mundane. I'm not going to talk about Magical Mystery Cure here because of the controversy, but even outside of that, he's got some real gems under his belt. Sonic Rain Boom, The Return of Harmony, The Cutie Pox Chronicles. If they aren't at least in your top 10, I don't know what to say. I even really like his weaker efforts, like It's About Time, despite, let's be totally honest here, the worst ending in the show's history. If he has a flaw, that's probably it. His endings have a tendency to be, I have really grown to hate this word in the past couple of months, but I have to say it, rushed. Yay, Twilight instantly knows the spell to fix her friends, and Discord doesn't even try to fight back. But like I said in a previous review, it's the journey, not the destination, and every other part of that episode is a pure masterpiece. He also seems to have a weird obsession with destroying Ponyville. he's destroyed it on at least 4 occasions, and I'm not sure why. Maybe he has a deep-rooted hatred of the older generations and is taking it out on friendship as magic. He has 3 episodes, well, 4, but I'm not talking about the 4th here, that tend to get a lot of flack. Swarm of the Century, Ponyville Confidential, and Magic Duel. I have no idea why anyone hates Ponyville Confidential. In fact, I think it's the best CMC episode, period. Swarm of the Century I understand a bit more because of Pinky being Pinky, but Pinky is allowed to be Pinky because only she can be Pinky. You follow? Because Larson did 10 episodes in. As for Magic Duel, most people found this episode to be a huge letdown. One question, what did you expect? Trixie to come out of nowhere and cast Secta Sempra on Twilight, causing ribbons of blood to spray out of her, while she returns fireballs that char Trixie to the bone and we see every bloody gory second? To all who are expecting more from this episode, I implore you to realize that there's a difference between a duel and a fight. A fight is when characters try to beat the shit out of each other. A duel is when characters try to best each other with skill to prove that they are superior. On top of that, Trixie was trying to win, and Twilight was only trying to not lose. And then there's Luna Eclipsed, which is my favorite of the 3 holiday episodes. Honestly, I reviewed it so recently that anything I say about it will just be repeating myself. Speaking of that, the Secret of My Excess review, which I'll say right now is the best Spike episode, is in production. For those who have Emily Larson as their favorite, I'll say right now that this is the best he could hope to be with what my favorite has done and is doing.
We have to make them see we can save the crystal ponies with their history. Oh, we have to get this right. Yes, we have to make them see we can save the crystal ponies with their history.
I'm going to be blunt as possible on why I like her so much. She does all of the important shit. Her first episode was Dragonshy, which not only started the show's climb to greatness, but proved that Fluttershy could be a good, likable, and useful character. Not to mention that it's still a fun watch, and it's a homage to The Hobbit, which I didn't realize while reviewing it because I'm an idiot. She also helped a lot of people see how great a character Rarity could be with Sweet and Elite, which I just reviewed. Her most important episodes were Call of the Cutie, which not only introduced the CMC really well, but did the Finding the Cutie Mark plot that others have beaten into the ground not only first, but did it the best. Lesson 0, which changed up the moral formula that may have proved cancerous to the show and doomed it to repetition, and a Canterlot Wedding, which introduced Shining Armor and Cadence. Now, it's become a slightly controversial episode because it does have some problems with logic, and in my opinion that makes the episode even better, with how many people didn't notice them until somebody really took an ice pick to it. It wasn't the first time she had an episode like that either. Party of One had a glaring logical problem, the party extraordinaire forgetting her own birthday, which most people, myself included, didn't even notice the first time around. Honestly, the only episode of hers that I don't like is Hearts and Hooves Day, but do I even need to say why?
A kissy wissy snuggy wuggy sugar bear.
Shut up! Just shut up! Please, shut up! Green Isn't Your Color is another pretty good one, doing jealousy correctly, unlike All's Well That Ends Well. The only thing wrong with it was Twilight was being shoehorned needlessly into the plot, which, like I said, Megan McCarthy fixed. One thing I really love about her episodes is the way she writes Spike. I know it's an odd thing to bring up, but he's usually characterized as a wimpy punching bag or a useless dolt. Between Lesson 0 and the Crystal Empire, I can see that she really gets him. Oh yeah, the Crystal Empire. It's time to get controversial. I actually like the episode, and unlike feeling Pinky Keen, I actually think it's a good episode too. Because do you know what I did? I watched all 3 season openers back to back. The Return of Harmony comes first, big surprise, but the Crystal Empire actually comes a close second. And that's for only one reason, and it's not Sombra. It's the wonky tone. It keeps shifting back and forth between Twilight going after the heart in the darkness to the others keeping the crystal ponies distracted in the bright sunshine. I wouldn't exactly call Sombra a good villain, but I've seen worse, like Nightmare Moon. Yes, I went there. Sombra had the ability to keep down and impress an entire empire, while Nightmare Moon had the ability to make a thorn, cut off a mustache, and make scary trees that did absolutely nothing. Neither of the two really made themselves known into the climax. In fact, they seem to be on a very similar wavelength. And with moments like this, I cannot kick this episode to the curb like so many others have done. Let me make this clear. I think Foster's the better showrunner, but I think McCarthy is the better writer, and under no circumstances do I think she's a bad showrunner. In fact, I think she's actually been doing pretty good, just not as good as Fost was. And while we're deep in the volcano controversy, and I'm probably going to get plenty of hate anyway, I may as well talk about Equestria Girls, since you know she's the one writing it. Some people are kicking it to the curb, and some are cautiously optimistic. Is anyone else actually looking forward to it like I am? Yes, I'm looking forward to it. The way I see it, we are getting 66 minutes of the characters we've come to know and love, made by the same team who brought us all together, by the writer who does all of the important shit, 6 months earlier than we would have gotten any pony stuff. Does the trailer leave a lot to be desired? Of course it does, but so did the trailer for A Canterlot Wedding, which made it seem like the main 6 were going to duplicate themselves to do all of the chores for a stereotypical wedding. Either DHX is good at making bad trailers on purpose, or they're very bad at making trailers in general. I'm not asking people to like where the show is going. Hell, I'm not even asking them to shut up about it, though it would be nice if they stopped threatening the DHX staff members. I'm asking them to keep an open mind. Don't judge based on appearances, and who knows, maybe a show about pastel humanoids can be just as good as a show about pastel equines, learning the magic of friendship that rose up from the most saccharine stupid imaginable. Huh, that's really strange. No copyright ID. Alright, let's try this again then. This episode stars with Twilight preparing to reshelve her library. It's a nice homage to The Sorcerer's Apprentice, but it gets interrupted by Spike laughing. Oh yeah, this is a Spike episode, isn't it? Give me a minute. Alright, I'm ready. Spike was laughing because he has a special gemstone that's a birthday present to himself. It's a fire ruby, and apparently you can age them like cheese or wine. Rarity comes over and notices his gem, and immediately begins fawning over it. Yes, she does have a reason to be here. She was looking for a book on historical fashion, so no complaints from me. Until this happens.
I've never seen anything quite so stunning before. Like it? It's magnificent.
Did she just try to seduce the gem away from Spike? After the fact, Emily Larson stated that this was all from Spike's point of view, and Rarity's thanks, a kiss on the cheek, do give clues to it, but you've got to be more clear on stuff like this. But I can't be too mad at this because she never outright asks for it, and sometimes it can be hard to hide mannerisms. Spike is so overjoyed by this that he claims that he'll never wash his cheek again. And he was actually serious. Twilight manages to clean it just before Spike's birthday party. All the main six come over and provide Spike with gifts, much to his surprise.
You know you get presents on your birthday?
Well, actually, this is my first birthday in Ponyville. I usually just get one present from Twilight. A book.
So she does care. Rarity shows off how grateful she is for the fire ruby, and then we see that Spike has been enjoying his party a lot, and is grateful for everything. Pinky lets it out that Spike has a special cake at Sugar Cube Corner, and so he rushes towards it. This is a sapphire cupcake, and it makes me curious as to who would come up with a recipe like that. Spike is distracted by this, and so he bumps into Cheerilee. While helping her pick up her spilled groceries, he tells her that it's his birthday, and Cheerilee gives him a hat. Who picks up a hat while grocery shopping?
Every pony should get fun gifts on their birthday.
I hope she realizes what she's just done. This little statement gives him the idea to start mentioning his birthday to random ponies, and he begins taking their stuff, until Twilight stops him from nearly robbing some pony. She scolds him, but it doesn't seem to convince him to stop. And yes, that is very creepy. The next morning, Twilight finds Spike in a pile of callbacks to previous episodes. She moves the stuff to find that Spike has grown in his sleep, and apparently he has sparkle vision, which pretty much gives him the desire to steal and hoard shit. Also, his voice is deeper. The implications are impossible to ignore now. Spike has hit some kind of puberty, and I suppose now is a good time to explain specifically why I don't like Spike episodes. It's not that I don't like him, because I do. Hell, it's not even that most of his episodes are of extremely poor quality. It's the fact that they keep throwing uncomfortable ideas at us and never really explain them either. After visits to a doctor and a vet, Twilight takes Spike to Sakura, who explains that dragons grow with greed, and the more they grow, the more greedy they get. Let's explore a fraction of the questions I have now. Is this the only way that Spike grows, or is it just a sped up process? If he never got anything, would he stay a baby dragon forever? Speaking of that, what happens when the main six eventually expire and Spike is left on his own? Emily Larson, you may not have brought these ideas up, but you put them to the forefront of the episode. And I'm not the only one having these questions either. Twilight steals a broom in the town square and uses it to lure Spike back to the library. And then she traps him in her spare room, which has glass windows. He doesn't escape though. Instead he gathers up a hoard of books and perches on top of them. It's only when Twilight removes the books that Spike escapes, through the wooden wall. Twilight runs to Applejack for help, who is currently missing her apples, and her leaves. Applejack laughs at the suggestion that it's Spike who's destroying everything, until Spike runs by holding her stuff. Applejack and Twilight try to tie Spike up, but only manage to get themselves tied to a tree. Rainbow comes by and, of course, has a bit of a laugh. That is until Fluttershy lets out a scream. Oh yeah, she's afraid of grown dragons, isn't she? They come to her and find her hiding in a huge tree. All Spike did, though, was steal her chicken coop and run. Next is Pinky's scream. They go to Sugar Cube Corner to find Pinky throwing cakes at him. After Spike takes a bunch of cakes, he grows again. Here's another question. How big can Spike get? Is there a limit or something?
Completely out of control. Who knows where he'll go next?
Considering we've got all the main 6 together except Rarity, I think I do. Yeah, Spike kidnaps Rarity and an air raid siren goes off. Spike is busy destroying the town. He removes the water tower to hold all of his shit, and a flood washes the ponies away. To think that all of this destruction wouldn't have happened if ponies weren't nice to Spike. Fluttershy and Rainbow Dash try to talk Spike down. It doesn't work, and they get tied up in Rarity's cape and fall into the water. Next at the bat is the Wonderbolts, so they actually do have a purpose. They try to fight Spike, but seem to be nothing more than a minor annoyance. Spike sees the cave from Dragonshy and heads towards it. When the Wonderbolts get to be too much of a nuisance, he traps them in the water tower. I'm beginning to think that M.A. Larson doesn't like the Wonderbolts too much, since this is the second episode of his where they have suffered a humiliating defeat. Rarity tries to scold Spike, and in doing so accidentally reveals the Fire Ruby. He wants it, but Rarity will not let him have it since it was a gift from the Spike she remembers. The scolding and the gem reminds Spike of his previous generosity, and he turns back to normal and causes them to plummet. Question 45. Can something like this happen with any dragon? As they fall, Spike tries to confess his crush to Rarity, but she doesn't need to hear it. And yes, it is very heartwarming. Luckily, Rainbow Dash and Fluttershy manage to save them, and every pony is happy, except for the Wonderbolts who are quivering in the corner. Why do you want to be one of them? Spike glances over the destruction he caused, and is obviously really guilty about it, but Rarity comes around and says that she's proud of him, and that seems to stop him from feeling so bad about himself. Am I looking too deeply into this? You'll tell me if I'm looking too deeply into this, right? I did a lot of complaining throughout this episode, mostly with all of the uncomfortable questions that were raised, most of them with the inevitable situation of Spike growing up. And there were plenty of questions that weren't answered. Is this the only way that Spike can grow up, or is he going to stay a baby dragon forever? And neither of those situations is exactly a happy possibility. Even with all these questions, this is probably the best Spike episode. I'll put it this way, this episode does a lot more than it doesn't do. It had a brilliantly set up plot, and there were a lot of jokes that hit home, especially with Pinky's surprised face. Most importantly, this episode had plenty of heart, but the questions, they're there, and so the best I can give this episode is a silver rating. Just, to the writers, try not to bring up questions that you aren't willing or able to answer. By the way, I'm going to be reviewing the episodes in broadcast order, so next up is Hearthwarming Eve. This episode starts with the main 6 taking a ride to Canterlot. They're all excited, and quite honestly, I don't know why. They're all going to be acting in a play. I'm sure it's an honorable feat, but they seem a little too enthusiastic. Especially Fluttershy, who has stage fright, which doesn't come up once after the episode begins. Okay, who wrote this episode? Meriwether Williams? This'll be fun. Speaking of that stage fright thing, they spend the first minute of the episode building it up. It really makes me think that that would have been the main conflict of the episode, but it's not. In fact, there isn't really an overarching conflict in this episode. A window opens and the main 6 begin fighting over pretty much everything. Really spontaneously, actually. And that's how you know it's a Meriwether Williams episode. I didn't say anything about her in my top 5 writers list because she's not bad enough for me to kick her to the curb, but she isn't good enough to be, well, one of my favorites. By the way, reuse soundbite, again. Here's what I know about Meriwether's writing style. She likes to write assholes. No, really, that pretty much sums up every single Meriwether Williams episode. Unlike Charlotte Fullerton's main gimmick, bending the plot to a contrived outcome, assholes have a place. The problem is that she frequently makes the main 6 assholes when they're not, usually. It's not too much of a problem in this episode, though. The fighting only takes place in the first couple of minutes, and for the rest of the episode is the Hearthwarming play. They call it a pageant, but it's not a pageant. Ah, yes, the play. We're going to learn about the founding of Equestria, which apparently happened long before Celestia and Luna. I'm going to ignore established continuity until the end, or we'll be here all day. A long time ago, ponies didn't know harmony, and each of the 3 tribes lived in separation. The Pegasi controlled the weather like they do now, the Earth ponies grew the food, and the unicorns controlled the day and the night cycle. So they had a system. The Earth ponies grew everyone's food, and in return, the Pegasi didn't send a tornado to kill them, and the unicorns didn't keep it daytime forever to scorch everyone to a crisp. At least, that's how I assume it happened. One day, a mysterious blizzard came and covered the land. With it, the Earth ponies couldn't grow any food. For some reason, the Pegasi couldn't do anything with the storm, and the unicorns couldn't control it with their magic. So the 3 tribes turned on each other, and the more hatred that spread, the worse the blizzard got. It was eventually decided that a grand summit would be held, and the leaders of each of the 3 tribes would be sent. Sort of. Rarity plays Princess Platinum, daughter of the Unicorn King, which according to this means that Princess is a higher rank than King. Rainbow Dash plays Commander Hurricane, and Pinkie Pie plays Chancellor Puddinghead. They immediately get to fighting. The Earth ponies are hogging whatever food they can because they blame the Pegasi for freezing everything. Or as she puts it,
It's only because you mean old Pegasuses are making it snow like crazy!
the Pegasi blame the unicorns, thinking that they're using their magic to make the blizzard, and the rest of the scene is just arguing. Well, that and a little bit of racism. The three leaders return home to complain. Rainbow Dash tells Fluttershy that they're going to find a new home. Yeah, I know they were given in-play names, but it's just easier to call them who they are, and who they are acting like. Except Commander Hurricane might possibly be a dude. Rarity comes to the same conclusion, telling Twilight they will also be seeking a new home, and Pinkie Pie talks to Applejack. Does anyone else find it strange that those two have had very little interaction up to this point? You'd think it would happen more often with Applejack playing the straight mare to Pinkie's zaniness. I will give Merriweather that. If there's one thing about her episodes I like, is that she puts together characters that don't see much interaction. Granted, it doesn't always work, but it's something. Pinkie decides to leave as well. So there's a journey where the leaders basically insult their underlings. Rainbow Dash is incredibly brash, Rarity is constantly whining, and Pinkie Pie is too scatterbrained. This just became the strangest play I've ever watched. Normally in plays like this, we try to glorify our founders and leaders. I guess things work differently in Equestria. Either that or Celestia wrote the play to make things look horrible before a reign, but we all know that that could never happen. All three types of ponies find their perfect location and dub them Pegasopolis, Unicornia, and, Earth, respectively. Why do people find that surprising? They are Earth ponies after all. But, surprise, surprise, but the land they've all chosen is the same place. As soon as they figure this out, the fighting starts again, almost immediately. The underlings try to con their leaders, but they'll have none of it, and the blizzard starts again. This time it's courtesy of crazy horse ghosts. I'll give this play one thing. It has the best damn theater effects I've ever seen. The snow forces every pony into a cold and desolate cave. And there's some more fighting. This actually doesn't upset me. 1, because it's not out of character, and 2, because it eventually has them fighting over a rock. That's how you do it. Oh yeah, it doesn't last forever either. Eventually the cave starts freezing, and so do the leaders. The underlings bump into each other, and Twilight identifies the ghosts as Wendigos, creatures that feed off fighting and hatred. The underlings realize that they don't really hate each other, and they reconcile, and Twilight uses her freaky unicorn magic to shatter the ice. Throughout the night, the three tribes get to know each other, and in the morning they raise a flag with 2 alicorns. Wait, what? Oh yeah, this episode ends with a song. It's pretty much a Christmas carol. Then there's the perfect bookend to a not-so-perfect episode. This is probably Meriwether Williams' best Season 2 effort, and yet I'm only giving it 3 stars. Haven't given one of these in a while. Why? Well, let's start with the obvious continuity errors. This episode battles against a lot of the established lore, and the flag at the end does raise some questions, especially since Spike specifically states that this play takes place before Celestia and Luna. But honestly, they don't bother me for one reason. This is a play. I'd be a lot more surprised if it wasn't at least a little romanticized, especially if the writer of the play was trying to make the before times look bad. Also, there were children in the audience. Make of that what you will. No, my problems stem from the beginning and the ending, where the main 6 practically turn on each other at the drop of a hat. If it didn't make any sense at the beginning, it definitely doesn't make any sense at the end, considering that they just finished a play about the importance of friendship. And the play itself does have a sense of being contrived, with the main 6 essentially playing flanderized versions of not only themselves, but the stereotypes of their respective race. Otherwise, it's a fun watch, and I'll probably view it again come Christmas time. There's some semblance of heart there, and I definitely did laugh. But there aren't enough good parts to hide the flaws. Speaking of which, if there's something I wish this episode did, it's tell us how they actually celebrate Hearthwarming Eve. From the decor I can assume it's like Christmas, but the Eve at the end does confuse me slightly.
The fire of friendship lives in our hearts. As long as it burns, we cannot drift apart. The quarrels arise, their numbers are few. Laughter and singing will see us through. Will see us through. We are a circle of holy friends. A circle of friends.
This episode starts late at night with Granny Smith banging on a pan, shouting that the Timberwolves are coming. After Spike at your service, this has gone from funny to terrifying. But in all seriousness, she claims that the Zap Apples are coming, and that seems to make every pony happy. In the morning, Applejack and Big Mac are busy putting buckets underneath trees, while Apple Bloom is about to be instructed on how to make Zap Apple jam. She gets handed a broom for sweeping. Outside, a storm electrifies the trees and grows some leaves on them. Meanwhile, Apple Bloom and Granny Smith are hopping over watering cans while shouting the alphabet. How do you come up with something like that? Diamond Tiara and her father walk by. Her father's name is Filthy Rich, and he seems excited for the upcoming Zap Apple harvest, claiming that he gets the first 100 jars. While he's talking to Granny Smith, Diamond Tiara mocks Apple Bloom, and tries to get her to be embarrassed by Granny Smith's behavior. Yes, Diamond Tiara is an asshole and deserves to die in a fire. That has been established in a previous episode. Apple Bloom and Granny Smith go into town, and, with Diamond Tiara's advice, Granny Smith's eccentric behavior proves embarrassing at every possible opportunity. She bites into a pan, has bees nest on her chin, and shouts out loudly so Diamond Tiara and Silver Spoon can hear her, and they mock Apple Bloom. We've already established that they're both assholes. Why is this necessary? The next day, Filthy Rich is giving his presentation for an event called Family Appreciation Day, something that happens every Monday. And it's Apple Bloom's turn next time. But that's Sap Apple Harvest Day, and both Big Mac and Applejack will be busy. Of course, Diamond Tiara, in an attempt to embarrass Apple Bloom, suggests her Granny Smith, and Cheerilee seems to like the idea. Apple Bloom tries to convince Applejack to forget the harvest, but is unable to. Zap apples are way too important. Speaking of which, the next sign, crows appear. And in some pretty cool visuals, the trees get some blue blossoms. That's something I probably should mention. This is definitely one of the more visually impressive episodes of Season 2. Apple Bloom tries to talk to Scootaloo and Sweetie Belle, and together they try to get her out of her future embarrassment. First, Apple Bloom tries to fake being sick, but that doesn't work. Then, when they see some meteors, they try to harvest the Zap apples in order to get the job done before Family Appreciation Day. Unfortunately, the apples aren't ripe yet, so when Sweetie Belle bucks a tree, she gets electrocuted. Hey, don't scold me for laughing at this. Scootaloo's laughing too. And picking the apples doesn't work either. Next, they get Cheerilee to come to the farm, and they puppet a sleeping Granny Smith. It fails when Granny Smith wakes up. Also, the Zap apples become ripe. In one last-ditch attempt, the CMC give Granny Smith an invitation to a distant relative. It almost works, but Granny Smith appears right on time when the relative was actually on the train.
I can't wait to hear Granny Smith's presentation. If she can remember any of it.
Diamond Tiara, are you making fun of an elder for potentially forgetting things? Considering that Granny Smith seems to have the earliest stages of Alzheimer's in this episode, that's incredibly low, even for you. Luckily, I figured out her evil plan. She wants me to mark down an episode because of her despicable behavior, but I'm not going to let her win. Not this time. Granny Smith begins telling her story. When she was a child, there was no Ponyville. She and her family were travelers. One day, they went to Canterlot and saw Princess Celestia. She saw that they were tired from traveling and showed them a location where they could settle. They settled and began planting. Unfortunately, it wasn't long before they began running low on food. One night, even knowing the dangers, Granny Smith wandered into the everfree forest looking for some kind of food, and then she came across a Zap apple tree. While she was picking them, timberwolves appeared. She quickly ran home and began banging on a pan, which startled them off. Soon they planted the Zap apples, and trees grew instantly. Over the years, Granny Smith paid close attention to the signs surrounding the Zap apples, and the special rules for making Zap apple jam. And the jam was so good that it eventually led to other ponies settling in the town. Every one of the students is impressed by the story, and it's Silver Spoon who begins the applause. Apple Bloom rightfully rubs it in Diamond Tiara's face. When Diamond Tiara attempts to insult Granny Smith, Apple Bloom rushes to her defense. And Apple Bloom, with a newfound respect of her grandmother, begins to learn the trade of making Zap apples. And Diamond Tiara is forced into some public humiliation. Isn't karma sweet?
Still, it's not enough.
Why do I always seem to forget that this episode exists? I mean, it's really, really good. But if you asked me to name every single episode, this would probably be the one I would forget. And I don't know why. Like I said before, there's a lot to like here. The visuals are absolutely stunning. There's a lot of cool effects you can do with lightning, and they really run with it. There's plenty of humor with Granny Smith acting like a kooky old lady, although it can get a little awkward sometimes. Most importantly, the moral, although it wasn't spelled out, is a really good one. Why do the CMC always get the best morals? The only problem, as you might have guessed, comes from Diamond Tiara. The first time she tried to get under Apple Bloom's skin, it was needed. The second time, it got old. The third time, it got annoying. And the fourth time, it got aggravating. Luckily, she, for the most part, shuts up for the second half of the episode, and at least she gets some sort of punishment at the end. I don't give half stars, and I'm never going to, but if I did, I'd give this episode 4.5 because of her and her alone. But since I'm nice, and I want to thwart Diamond Tiara's evil plan of destroying any episode she's in, I'm going to give this episode 5 stars. Ha! Hello, Charlotte Fullerton. We meet again. Have you learned your lesson? No, of course not. This episode starts with the main six fawning over some new infants at the hospital. Apparently, Cupcake and Carrot Cake, Pinky's teachers, have had a child. Actually, they've had two. These are Pound Cake and Pumpkin Cake. One of them is a Pegasus, and one of them is a unicorn. And the explanation of that is...
Easy. My great-great-great-great-grandfather was a unicorn, and Cupcake's great-aunt, second cousin twice removed, was a Pegasus. That makes sense, right?
Absolute bullshit. No, that doesn't make any sense. On top of that, I don't think adultery is very funny. Obviously, there's a purpose for one to be a Pegasus and the other to be a unicorn, and we'll get to that. And yes, that will be the episode's main problem.
And be careful careful around pumpkin cake. Baby unicorns get strange magic surges that come and go.
You know what? I can actually buy that. In plenty of other media, magical beings do have random magical surges. Pinky seems to be really excited to have children around, much to the nurse's annoyance. The humor is eh. A month later, because I guess nothing that important really happened, Pinky is excited and celebrates their 1-month party. She's actually really good at playing around with them, but it's clear that she doesn't even consider the more serious parts of taking care of infants. Charlotte Fullerton, why are you trying to make me vomit? Between Mr. Cake changing dirty diapers with his mouth and that god-awful disgusting bird, I think you have some serious bile fascination. If you do, I don't care. Just please keep it out of your episodes. We learn the pound cake has urges to destroy stuff, and Pumpkin gets urges to put things in her mouth. I'm not even going to touch that one. Mr. and Mrs. Cake realize that they've got a huge order they need to fill, and they need to find a babysitter right on the spot. Wow, you're actually explaining things in a plausible manner. I see improvement. Pinky offers her services, but they live with her. So they go around to the rest of the main 6, who each have excuses. Some are more plausible than others. And Pinky is sure to remind the Cakes that her services are available at every opportunity. When all the main 6 are exhausted, they entrust their children to Pinky. Sort of. They remind her that babysitting is more than just playing with foals, and that she actually has to take care of them. But that's about it. So the Cakes leave, and 5 seconds later the twins start crying. Pinky attempts to cheer them up by playing peekaboo, but it doesn't work. Then Pinky tries stand-up comedy. Okay, that's pretty funny. Unfortunately, the twins don't seem to think so. Pinky tries to sing and dance, but it doesn't work. Eventually, flour falls on her head, and it gets the twins to laugh. I'm not questioning it, why should you? Pinky starts reading over her list from the Cakes. It's snack time now, and she places bowls of slop in front of the twins. Then she begins to encourage them to eat as messily as possible. Pumpkin is more interested in eating the tablecloth, and when it's removed, Pumpkin starts crying. This upsets Pound, and so he tosses his bowl in the air, which lands on his head, getting him to cry. The flour trick works again.
Yeah, I think I can see where this is going.
We all do, Pinky. We're going to get the nap scene, the bath scene, the bottle scene, and the infamous diaper scene that's done in every single babysitting plot ever. Am I somewhere in the ballpark? Yep, the bath scene. Of course, the twins run amok once again. By the way, not only does Pinky lose sight of them in the bathroom, she also leaves the bathroom at one point to go get toys while the babies are in a tub full of water. I cannot stress this enough. If you are ever taking care of infants, do not leave them unsupervised, period. But especially in a place as dangerous as a bathroom. Especially if they're in a full tub. I know it doesn't seem like much, but those reckless and stupid decisions are making it very hard for me to find any worth in this very trite episode. Poundcake breaks off the faucet of the bathtub. What is he now, Bam Bam? Pinky does the flour trick again and gets coated in dough due to the bath water. Next we have the diaper scene. Playing your trump card a little early, aren't you? Pinky is just as reluctant as I am to actually see this happen, considering that ponies need to use their mouth to do it. Shenanigans ensue. It ends when Pinky diapers herself. Twilight's at the door. And hey, Charlotte Fullerton actually explained why Twilight is there this time. She was busy doing work earlier, and now that she's done, she's come to check up on Pinky. Unfortunately, Twilight has no real purpose in this episode. She wanted to see if Pinky needed help, Pinky saw it as an insult, and she kicks Twilight out. What was the point of that? Was the episode a minute too short? You could have cut the scene out entirely and the episode would have stayed exactly the same. Pinky still even has a diaper on her head at the end. Speaking of which, a couple of babies are now running around without diapers on. Pinky, you're gonna have some cleaning to do. Pinky finds them both happily playing in their room. You know what? Right now I don't care about the implausibility. I'm just interested in getting this episode over with. Pinky tries to assert herself, and actually seems to succeed. Seems. I know that Pinky's a little bit of an airhead, but I know she's not that stupid. Anyone can see that they're playing her. As soon as Pinky turns around, they've both disappeared. Pumpkin happens to be in the closet, munching on a toy. Then creepy music begins playing, and the scene begins building up to the most horrifying thing imaginable. The destruction of all continuity ever. Oh, and a homage to Trainspotting because, I don't know. Apparently Poundcake can fly, and Pumpkin can do magic. No, wait, let me rephrase that. Pound is a more agile flyer than Rainbow Dash. And Pumpkin could beat Twilight in a magic duel. I said earlier that a young magical being having random bouts of magic didn't bother me. The keyword there being random. Pumpkin has clear control over her magic. There's a lot of problems with continuity here, but if you don't know exactly what's wrong here, just watch these two scenes back to back.
Everything I could about magic.
And that doesn't explain Pound's uncanny flying ability. The fledgling wings of any species are not strong enough to fly. Blah 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 fiction. If Scootaloo can barely hover, then by no realms of plausibility should Pound be able to fly. Charlotte Fullerton, I know that this is one of the most alien concepts to you, as alien as zombie demons rising from the graves to conquer us all, but continuity is not a polite suggestion, and there's a major difference between world building and actively going against canon. If this is some failed attempt to build onto canon, then why is this the only episode which they have their god powers? And let's not forget several other questions, like what the hell is a standard crib supposed to do when your infant can fly over the bars, or just phase right through them, which for the record even Celestia's prize student Twilight has not been shown doing. Yes, this is your work of fiction, sort of, but here's the thing, even when you define the boundaries of your world, you cannot go outside them. Eventually, the stress of Pinky's laws of reality breaking gets to her and she bursts out crying. The twins, feeling sorry, drench themselves in flour. I guess SpongeBob was right. Crying does solve all your problems after all. This episode fails on almost every front, even with its admittedly good moral. Yes, being a caregiver is more responsibility than just being a playmate. It's not leaving infants alone in a bath full of water. And being a writer is more than just making shit up. I said a long time ago that this show mixes up the standard cliches by using the mechanics of its world, and that's clearly what Charlotte Fullerton was trying to do. The problem? She did it wrong. You build on old mechanics to create new ones, not create new ones to replace the old ones. Here's a tip, leave the world building to M.A. Larson. He knows what he's doing. Do you know what the sad part is? This episode was okay until the last 5 minutes, until you had the infants get seized by the spirit of Satan. I mean, it was a little clunky and a little cliched, but besides the bathroom scene, there was nothing abhorrently wrong with it. I may have even given it silver quality, but no, you seem to have some undying need to bend the plot to places it doesn't need to be. If you wanted to have Pinky deal with magic and flight in her babysitting adventures, there's a really easy solution. Have her babysit older children. Maybe one who's intensely interested in using magic and gets the idea to use Pinky as a test subject. Or one who's really into flying faster and faster, even if it causes things to get broken. If you did that, you wouldn't have even had to do that stupid, borderline insulting hand wave at the beginning. As a final lesson, there's a right way to do an adult joke. And then there's a way to suggest very adult themes that this show isn't allowed to deal with, and is very much a serious real-world problem. Well, this one was a long time coming. There's an elephant in the room which I will address after the review is over. Just note that it has absolutely no bearing on my final score. This episode starts with Applejack running some sort of course in preparation for an upcoming rodeo. Applebloom compliments Applejack a lot and keeps telling her how well she'll do. Some ponies are cheering on Applejack for offering her prize money when she wins to fix up the town hall, because Mayor Mare is too incompetent to get the funding to fix it herself. Yes, Applejack is assuming that she'll win, and so does everyone else. I can see the conflict already. Do you see why I hate her? A week later, the main six in Applejack's family are setting up a party for her return. By the way, people's enjoyment of this episode seems to come down to how much they can stomach Pinky, and I personally think that she's a riot in this episode. The pony that arrives at the party isn't Applejack, but a male pony, and they use the classic gag where it's his birthday, but with a twist. Now that's some thoughtful writing right there. The letter says that Applejack isn't coming back, but she'll send some money soon. So yeah, this episode has predictability on the negative. We all know why Applejack isn't coming back, considering all the hype she was getting earlier. That being said, this scene is pretty damn heart-wrenching. The remaining main six vow to search all over Equestria to find Applejack. They pull into the rodeo and go on a search, but they don't find her, until one pony points towards the desert. So they take the train towards that, and to break up the tension, Pinky has to use the bathroom. Really badly. Okay. They arrive at Dodge Junction and find Applejack in the bathroom. The main six want to know what happened, but before Applejack can say anything, this pony, Cherry Jubilee, comes out and starts talking to them. She says that she saw her at the rodeo and had never seen a pony win so many ribbons in all of her life. This does remove some of the predictability. The story they're going with is that Applejack was looking for a change in scenery, so Jubilee gave her a job picking cherries. Of course, none of them buy it, but Applejack is being stubborn again and not telling them anything. That brings up most people's main problem with this episode. Applejack is once again betraying her element. I say once again because she already did that in Party of One, an episode I gave 5 stars because it was so enjoyably funny. And for the record, this episode is probably just as enjoyably funny. Of course, it wasn't a plot point in that episode like it is here, but each of the main six has broken their element on at least one occasion up to this point, and they'll continue to do so. They aren't perfect, and I'm not expecting them to be. I'm letting this slide because at no point is Applejack shown to be in the right by lying. All of Applejack's friends take the job as well in order to get her to admit what she's hiding. Geez, I wish getting a job was that easy in real life. This is another humorous scene that lets the tension build for quite some time. Hey, Amy Keating Rogers learned when and how to let a scene go on for some time. This scene ends when Applejack causes the cherry conveyor belt to go out of whack. Applejack leaves, and the rest of the main six clean up the mess, which is weird since technically Applejack made the mess. They decide that since Applejack isn't talking, they're gonna have to use the big guns. And the camera focuses on Pinkie Pie. I am dead terrified. Applejack is bucking trees when Pinkie wanders up to her, asking if she could help. Applejack tells her not to ask any questions, and 5 seconds later, Pinkie asks if Applejack ever had a chimichanga. Applejack takes the bait and says that those kind of questions are okay, leading Pinkie to go on a rant. I'm pretty sure that she's being annoying on purpose because Rainbow Dash uses her as a weapon. Finally, Applejack says that she'll say what's going on, but only tomorrow at breakfast. Pinkie Pie gets her to pinky promise that she'll do it. And that was a grave mistake. The next morning, when everyone wakes up, Applejack has disappeared, and Pinkie flips out. Yeah, thanks. I didn't need to sleep tonight. They all chase after her, but Applejack hitches a ride in a wagon. The main six find another wagon, which logically makes no sense. Fluttershy and Rainbow Dash can't possibly run faster with a burn than they can without. Whatever, it's not important. Fluttershy stops before they hit a rabbit, and then they go back into a chase. I will admit that it's definitely a pretty exciting scene. Hey, I like chase scenes, especially with Pinkie being Pinkie. Speaking of which, Pinkie jumps onto Applejack's cart, and Applejack uses some logical loopholes to make it seem like she was staying totally honest. Pinkie buys it, and she knocks Rarity off the carriage because I don't know. The chase scene continues without them. Applejack runs past a train, and her drivers rightfully write her off as insane. Of course, she doesn't realize that Fluttershy and Rainbow Dash can fly over the train. And Rainbow Dash tackles her, knocking a ton of ribbons out of her saddlebag. The problem is that none of them are for first place, so she didn't win any prize money. So Applejack took a job to win the prize money. None of her friends seem to care, though.
You're still #1 in our books. So, you're not upset or disappointed? But what about the mayor?
I hate you so much!
Applejack, we can always find a way to fix that hole in the roof, but if you don't come back, we'll never be able to fix the hole in our hearts.
So cheesy, I love it. The moral is, okay. And then this happens.
Which do you think, Rarity? Chimichurri or Chimichanga? Chimichurri, Chimichanga. Chimichurri, Chimichanga. Chimichurri, Chimichanga. Chimichurri, Chimichanga.
When I get back, you're gonna get it, Rainbow Dash!
I have no idea what that was about. So this episode. There are several episodes that I have no idea why people hate. Over a Barrel is one of them, and this is another. It seems that a lot of people hate this episode because it comes down to Applejack being dishonest. The thing is, she was lying like an honest person, trying to make it so the lie was truth using logical loopholes. It sounds really complicated, but that's how honest people lie. Admittedly, I've done it a few times myself. And I don't think that anyone ever has told the whole truth 100% of the time. Just because Applejack is the element of honesty, you shouldn't expect that from her either. In fact, I think that Applejack was entirely in character with her stubbornness and her pride getting in her way. It's hard to return to people a failure when they thought you would succeed. Imagine how you would feel if you returned to your parents after failing out of college. Applejack was probably in a similar boat. The plot itself was pretty simplistic, but I don't need every episode to be the best night ever. If you want to make 22 minutes of fun, that's fine, just make it entertaining. And I think this episode was fun enough to earn at least 4 stars. There were enough logical problems to keep me from giving this episode a perfect score, but it comes damn close. Well, I'll see you next time!
Act like you don't see me.
What? Am I forgetting something?
You've been ignoring me since the beginning. Don't act like you don't know why I'm here.
Oh yeah, this. Honestly, it's been over a year. We should be able to talk about this episode without talking about this. There are 2 versions of this episode. Only one scene has been altered between the 2. The one where a fan-favorite background pony, Derpyhooves, is named and actually speaks. So what happened? It's been so long you probably picked your own story by now. But there are several retellings of events. First story. Parents complained about this offensive behavior, and Hasbro was quick to censor this. I don't buy it. First of all, parents rarely care what their children watch, especially if it's just a cartoon. Just watch a SpongeBob episode like House Fancy or The Splinter if you don't believe me on that one. Secondly, there have been plenty of lovable klutzes throughout all of cartoon history without complaint. Even on this very show. And considering some of the more clearly offensive things in the show that wasn't censored, this seems far-fetched at best. Story 2. The voice actress accidentally mistook Derpy for a male and redid the voice as female. That seems more logical, considering that the new voice is more distinctly feminine. However...
That'll be 4 bits!
I didn't put those in my bag.
They've never really cared about it in the past. On top of that, if that was the only problem, they probably wouldn't have cared, and they wouldn't have changed the inflections or the word choices or removed her name. And now for the official story, given by Amy Keating Rogers herself and submitted to Equestria Daily. Link in the description. She originally wrote the scene starring Ditsy Doo, who was previously established as a klutz, but she was instructed to change the name as a fandom nod. And the scene was longer as well. The scene was made shorter simply because the script was too long, which is totally believable as the scene as it stands isn't too important to the story. However, Amy Keating Rogers didn't know that derpy could also mean retarded instead of just klutzy, which to this day I have never seen that word being applied that way. I seriously doubt that she purposely offended anyone, considering that she herself has a mentally disabled son. She did get some angry letters explaining it, and so did Hasbro and the Hub. Of course, they got much more praise than they did hatred, but still, they decided to play safe rather than sorry, and this is the fallout. I guess that raises the question, is derpy offensive, and or should she have been censored? First, let me say that there are some people in the world who will find anything offensive, and everything out there is probably offensive to someone. Let's change the question. Is derpy offensive to mentally handicapped people? I don't know. I'm not mentally handicapped. What I do know is that derpy was shown being allowed to help and treated as somewhat of an equal to Rainbow Dash, which is a good message, and censoring the mentally disabled from our media is not a good message. I have a very odd relationship with censorship in general. For every dumbass who complains at nothing, there's another dumbass who uses vulgarity to purposely offend. And then there are those dumbasses who use censorship to silence free speech. But sometimes without censorship, you get things like The Brave Little Toaster, a kids movie with extremely depressing themes, talk of suicide, and a scary as hell clown for absolutely no reason. I'll end it at this. It is of my own personal opinion that this should not have been censored. Maybe the original could have been misconstrued, but Hasbro has not censored more blatantly offensive things. Whether or not it was censored, the only outcome was Hasbro looking worse for the wear. For what it's worth, Derpy came back in Magical Mystery Cure for multiple appearances, and we could probably look forward to seeing her quite often in Season 4. Now that all that controversy is behind me for a while, it's time to review an episode. The Super Speedy Cider Squeezy 6000. That title's gonna kill me. This episode starts with Rainbow Dash waking Fluttershy up in the middle of the night. And then there's some innuendo. Apparently it's cider season once again, and Rainbow Dash wants to hurry into line, because Pinky always gets there first and buys up all the cider. Of course, when Rainbow gets there, there's already a huge line, with Pinky in the front. Yeah, you know, I'm not too keen on character torment episodes. When the sun rises, cider season opens, and the line begins moving. My first problem with this episode. They keep on talking about how the Apple family frequently runs out of cider before certain ponies later in the line get some. With Pinky buying a bunch, you think they'd place a limit or something, or maybe force them to go to the back of the line. It's, you know, a thought. I suppose I should bring up whether or not the cider is alcoholic. In the US and Canada, where the show is made, standard cider is just spiced apple juice, and hard cider has the alcohol in it. However, it's probably cider season because the apples are beginning to produce their own alcohol, and no one gets this excited for apple juice, however good it is. So yeah, I personally am going with the cider being alcoholic. When they run out of cider for the day, of course just before Rainbow gets some, ponies start complaining, and Applejack spouts some cliché dreck straight from a Smucker's Jam commercial. And then Pinky accidentally starts rubbing it in Dash's face. Remember what I said about Luna Eclipsed and how I said I wouldn't tolerate a character accidentally perpetrating a problem? Guess what? Same writer and same character. Granted, it's not driving the plot this time, but I think it's attempting to drive the humor. This is all interrupted when a machine drives in. This is the titular Super Speedy Cider Super Speedy Cider Squeezy. Screw it, I'm calling it Steve. This is the titular Steve, and it's driven by these two, Flim and Flam, who begin singing this episode's song.
Well, looky what we got here, brother of mine. It's the same in every town. Ponies with thirsty throats, dry tongues, and not a drop of cider to be found. Maybe they're not aware that there's really no need for this teary despair.
And the key that they need to solve the sad cider shortage you and I will share.
It's a fun song, but not one I listen to too often. It goes on for quite a while, but since it's full of exposition, it doesn't count as filler. That's the proper way to keep a song in the episode that's longer than 3 minutes. Yeah, I pretty much hate everything about May the Best Bet Win. This song almost goes on for 4, by the way. The Steve can make cider much faster than the apples can, and just as good too. So the Flim Flam brothers offer to sell us the apples, but since they're trapped in the past, they don't want to buy it. Okay, my next problem with this episode. It seems to suggest that we should keep traditions, even if they're counterproductive, which in my personal opinion is one of the worst anti-morals you can possibly have. Alright, the deal isn't quite as good as I'm letting on. The Flim Flam brothers eventually suggest a 25-75 split, with Flim and Flam getting the 75. Okay, Emmy Larson, I'll give you your point back. Just tread lightly. Yes, those exclamation points are my running score, so I don't end up surprising anyone when I pass or fail an episode. The apples refuse, so the Flim Flam brothers decide to become competitors instead, and promise to supply cider for everyone in town, and attempt to drive Sweet Apple Acres out of business. And then the scene just ends, and not a place to stop. The next day, the same thing happens. The apples run out of cider, and we get to see Rainbow Dash far in the back. Since it wasn't as bad as last time, I won't deduct a point, but please, stop it before we get into some uncomfortable territory. I don't know about the writers, but I don't like to see Rainbow Dash in misery. Though with things like cupcakes, who can really blame them for thinking that the fans want to see Rainbow Dash in pain? The Flim Flam brothers return with plenty of cider. They hand Rainbow Dash a mug, which gets knocked out of her hooves and splashes on the ground.
Family apples. Is this some kind of cruel joke?
Yes, it is. The Flim Flam brothers promise to make more cider than all of Ponyville can drink, and then Apple Bloom starts challenging them, claiming that she and her family can make more cider than all of Ponyville can even imagine. Granny Smith tries calming Apple Bloom until Flim here calls her a chicken, getting her to accept the challenge. Whoever can make more cider in 1 hour wins. And as an added bonus, Flim and Flam get to use Apple Family apples, and the winner gets control of Sweet Apple Acres. Capitalism ho? I know that Granny Smith is a little angry, and you should usually respect your elders, unless they do something batshit crazy like that. The Apple family has absolutely nothing to gain and everything to lose here. Oh, and just look at how sad Granny Smith and Apple Bloom are, even though they're the ones who went through with that stupid deal with absolutely no reluctance. I'm sorry, but this plot is worse than forced. There is no reason they should be in this situation. Applejack should have talked Granny Smith down, and the episode should have ended right there. Right now, this episode is failing, but there's still half an episode to go, and maybe Emmy Larson can redeem it. The next day, Mare, oh great, she's back, announces the rules of the competition, which I already stated. The competition begins, and Flim and Flam with their Steve are way ahead, making 6 barrels for every one of the apple families. Since this would be too pathetic if things were going on as they were, Twilight asks if Honorary Family could join. Flim and Flam state that they don't care if all of Ponyville would help. Hey, that's how you do it. Flim and Flam are overconfident, so it actually makes sense that they would bias the rules against themselves. And Applejack, without hesitation, invites her friends to help. I'll talk about this later. So they start going, and this is definitely an entertaining scene, and it puts the apples in the lead. Then Flim and Flam turn off the quality control. Soon, time is up, and Flim and Flam win. And in their celebration, they kick the apples out of town, which leads to all the town's ponies to feel so sad. That's not justified either, since they even let out some cheers when Flim and Flam were in the lead. What did they think was going to happen when Flim and Flam won? Then Flim and Flam gives some crappy cider to the ponies, which is more stupid to throw on the pile. They at least had some good cider, and it takes them, 5 seconds to make more? And then they ride off because no one wants their crap and they leave. Of course, that wasn't the deal, but whatever.
Princess Celestia, I wanted to share my thoughts with you. I didn't learn anything.
Yeah, that moral is probably the best one in the whole damn show. Alright, give him a point for that. And I suppose you should know how the joke with Dash never getting the cider turns out. Okay, I'll give you a point back for ending the joke on a high note. Yes, that's the correct way to end a mean-spirited joke. Just don't take it so far next time. Final score, 3 stars. Yeah, Emmy Larson's worst episode to date, I stand by it. But the worst episode from one of the best writers is still better than anything our lesser writers have done this season. You can tell that I hate it when the plot is forced. I don't care if a character would believably do it. Someone should have stopped Granny Smith, or the deal must have been made a little sweeter. At least get the Apple family something to gain. And no, cider for everyone doesn't count. Luckily, it's not as bad as shoving that tortoise into the episode for absolutely no reason whatsoever. And like I said, it was believable that Granny Smith would have done something like that. Speaking of cider for everyone, being mean-spirited for humor is really hard to do well. Here's how you start. Make sure that the character deserves it. Rainbow Dash was talking about torturing Pinky, sure, but that doesn't cut it. And the thing the character does to actually deserve it needs to happen within the episode. I don't want to hear about this character building up ill will in previous episodes. Rainbow Dash better get some kind of special treatment in the next episode. No, wait, she ends up breaking her wing and having to hide a new passion from her friends. Oh well. And then there's Applejack. So, she's not stubborn anymore. Great. To me, that's like Fluttershy not being shy anymore, or Twilight not having crazy freakouts. Yes, it's a problem that needs to be worked on for character development. But in a way, it's essential to who they are, and to put it bluntly, keeps them interesting. You'll note that Applejack doesn't have another episode until Apple Family Reunion, which I will have to deal with at a later date. She doesn't need to be stubborn, but she still needs to have problems, or else you're gonna get something like Apple Family Reunion. I'm not looking forward to that one. This episode starts with Rainbow Dash doing some fantastic tricks that, for the most part, we aren't able to see. That's because she crashes really badly, and considering the spills we have seen her take, it must have been pretty bad. She wakes up sometime later in a hospital bed with her friends looking all pretty concerned. You know, I like moments like this. The maximum score is 10, by the way. Apparently Rainbow Dash injured her wing so badly that she's forced to stay in the hospital for at least a couple of days. Of course, since Rainbow is so athletic, she thinks that staying in one place for so long will make her die of boredom. Her friends try to cheer her up, to not much success. Twilight suggests a book, but Rainbow Dash wants absolutely nothing to do with reading, thinking that it's just for nerds. And her friends laugh at her. They're all laughing because even though they're not nerds, they enjoy reading from time to time, and tell her how great reading is. I suppose that this is one of the bigger problems of the episode. The subtlety is very, very weak. This episode is more blatant with its moral than bridal gossip. So we get a montage where Rainbow tries to entertain herself by every means possible. It's okay, I guess. Apparently it only lasts for 1 minute. And then Rainbow Dash decides to give reading a shot. The star of the book, Daring Do, had crashed in a jungle, and she had also broken her wing. Yeah, Daring Do has a lot of parallels with Rainbow Dash, up to and including being a palette swap. There is definitely a lot of intense action here in all of the Daring Do segments. It's essentially the plot of the first part of Indiana Jones and the Raiders of the Lost Ark, minus the boulder, unfortunately. Like I said before, it really surprised me with what this show could actually get away with. It's pretty amazing what you can do when you use overkill effectively. Here they use it to make these death-defying feats look slightly ridiculous. All of the Daring Do parts are definitely worth a point, since not only is it intense, it actually helps us empathize with Dash. We want her to continue her book, probably just as badly as she does. Speaking of that, Dash realizes that she loves reading and calls herself an egghead, and she by no means wants to admit it to her friends. Of course, they frequently come and interrupt her reading time. First, it's Twilight and Fluttershy. They've brought Rainbow's favorite board game, which is some variant of Battleship. Yes, it's Rainbow's favorite, and it could be your favorite too for just $14.99 at any local Toyota. Hurry now and buy. And if you don't, you'll have to watch the movie. Rainbow Dash wants them to leave, so she purposely loses the game as quickly as possible. Twilight instantly gets suspicious because Rainbow Dash never loses, ever. Rainbow throws them off by attempting to, I have no idea. She says it's sleeping, but I've never seen sleeping like that. Yeah, I know she's faking it, but still. The next interruption comes when Daring Do comes across this creature, Owlazodal, which is actually a real creature from Aztec mythology. That's pretty cool, but it comes off as more freaky when you give it the voice of Pinky. Pinky, Applejack, and Rarity are the next to interrupt. Applejack attempts to cheer Rainbow up with her new trick. She can talk without moving her lips.
Yeah, just go ahead and eat up.
New headcanon. Applejack is on a quest to be Equestria's greatest ventriloquist. But seriously, this episode has quite a few problems with lip syncing. If you're gonna be lazy somewhere, I guess that's the best place. But realistically, I think that some audio got broken and needed to be re-recorded. Rainbow Dash gets her friends to leave by eating like a horse and grossing them out. I don't know why Pinky is so grossed out about this, considering that she's eaten messier than that. Whatever. Finally, the doctor snaps her out of her reading. It's now morning. Odd, I didn't know that it was ever night. And says that she's able to leave. They check her out of the hospital instantly, and put her in a wheelchair and command her to stay off her wing for a week, forcing her to leave the book behind.
How will I ever find out what happens to Daring Do?
Go to a library, maybe? Oh wait, Rainbow actually considers it. Except Twilight runs a library in town, and she's afraid to ask her about it since she called her an egghead before. Rainbow probably is afraid of an I told you so, and it does seem to be in character for her to not think things all the way through. There's no one around to tell her that her friends won't mock her, considering that they did laugh when she said she didn't want to read, so I won't complain here. Rainbow Dash tries to get back into the hospital by faking being sick, but that doesn't work when she totally blows it. Rainbow is almost as bad a liar as Applejack. I seriously don't know why people suggest that she should have been the element of honesty. She lies just as much. Later that night, Rainbow tries to break into the hospital by putting on a hoodie that covers everything except her rainbow tail. Oh yeah, this scene is a parallel to the Daring Do story. Of course, Daring Do didn't celebrate her victory the second she got her prize like Rainbow is doing here. Rainbow gets spotted by the patient who is sleeping in her bed, and that alerts the guards. Rainbow tries to fly over them, but her wing is still weak, and she loses the book in a pile of other ones. Rainbow ditches it and starts running through the town with guards on her tail, which ends up waking up all of her friends. And no one else. The chase scene finally ends in front of Twilight's library. With the spotlight on her, Rainbow admits that she's an egghead. For some reason, that makes Fluttershy smile. First thing, Twilight is a terrible librarian. If that book is the first in the series, then it should be the first on the shelf. Second thing, the moral. Reading being something that every pony can enjoy is something I'm docking a point for. No, it's not a bad moral, it's just that this show is friendship is magic, not reading is magic. There's a tangential moral in there that you shouldn't hide your hobbies from your friends in there because good friends won't make fun of you for it. Those two morals really should have been switched. If you did that, it would have also made some of the hammering this episode did about reading excusable. 4 stars isn't bad though, and I still am giving it a gold. I've got a soft spot for this episode. It's the first one I ever watched on my own. A Canterlot Wedding was out, and this episode was the top result. Since there's a parallel frequently drawn about being a brony, let's just say that was a weird experience to say the least. A look over your shoulder type of weird experience. So yeah, I saw the parallel. It obviously impressed me at pretty much every turn. The surprise is pretty much dried up, but this is still definitely a good episode to watch and rewatch with all the action-packed suspense. That's not to say that there isn't any surprise left in this episode. I never guessed that out of the 3 episodes that Rainbow Dash gets this season, the best of them would be about her reading a book.
Butterfly in the sky, I can go twice as high. Take a look, it's in a book, a reading rainbow. I can go anywhere, friends to know and ways to grow, a reading rainbow. I can be anything.
Oh, I've been dreading this one. Well, put 5 points on the board and let's get down to business. This episode starts with the CMC working on a project in their clubhouse. And hey, look! The glue is back. Does that make anyone else uncomfortable? That's actually a pretty good effort. This is for Shirley. The CMC are giving it to her because they want her to have the best Hearts and Hooves day ever. And in doing so, they learn that she doesn't have a special sun pony.
As amazing as you not have a very special sun pony on Hearts and Hooves Day.
Because the staff doesn't want to piss off the shippers. Shirley doesn't seem to mind though, but the CMC take it upon themselves to find her a boyfriend. God, I hate this episode already. It's not really a criticism towards this episode, but I just don't give a crap about love stories. Luckily, they spice this one up with a song, The Perfect Stallion. It's definitely better than their first attempt at singing, but the context bothers me. They're judging purely on the superficial— Is that a video game? Okay, you win this round, Hearts and Hooves Day. Yeah, it is one of the better songs of the season. At least better than the one that came before, but not as good as the one in the next episode. The CMC eventually settle on Big Mac. I guess they really do want to piss off the shippers. Apple Bloom knows that her brother is shy and won't ask Shirley on his own terms. But Sweetie Belle has an idea. She wants to get them in a romantic mood, so Shirley will ask him. Yes, this is a very stupid plan. But they are kids, and it probably seems like a good idea to them. You know, unlike their Showstoppers performance, where even the most intellectually deficient mental patient wouldn't think it was a good idea. You know, I just realized something. Most episodes I hate fall apart really quickly. We're 5 minutes in, and I still haven't lodged a justified criticism at this episode. So far, the only thing I really hate is the premise. We still have a while to go, but this episode is actually doing pretty good so far. The CMC set up a picnic and try to get Shirley and Big Mac together. Since they're not idiots, and this isn't a terrible shipfic, they don't get together. Defeated, the CMC bump into Twilight, and she explains how Hearts and Hooves Day came to be. Apparently, it was started by a love potion, and she was reading about it in her book, which even contains the recipe. And Twilight gives them the book without hesitation. Yes! I can finally deduct a point from this episode I hate so much! Seriously, Twilight, you just told them that it has the recipe for a love potion, and you're not even suspicious that they immediately ask for the book afterwards. And why does a history book have a recipe for a love potion? Afterwards, she tries to hand them the book about the elements of harmony for some reason, but the CMC vanish. So they go about making the love potion, which seems to only be able to be made by Pegasi, which is odd. I guess it was possible for Cadence to be a Pegasus before she was an Alicorn, and still have her talent being manipulating love. CMC set up another picnic, this time with the love potion, and they go on talking about how this is a wonderful idea, all the while that this is an absolutely terrible idea. Since Shirley and Big Mac still aren't idiots, they can see that the CMC are trying to set them up. However, they decide to humor them anyway and drink what they think is punch. And then we enter the half of the episode that I really don't like, even before they start talking. First of all, I find that faux romance soundtrack really annoying. Oh yeah, the talking.
Doopy doopy sweetie weetie pony pie.
Hope you take it, Schnoodlebum.
No, you, Snooky.
But God, the talking. That goes on for half the goddamn episode. Go on, start deducting points. Hey, 1 point? What do you mean 1 point? No. Technically no, but we already established in both the Stairmaster and the Showstoppers that you should never, ever annoy your audience. Fine, I'll try to find some other way to fail the episode. Nothing. The CMC become about a quarter as annoyed as I am with this. Yes, in Equestria, love potions turn you into simpering, stupid idiots.
You're my hearty, smarty, smoochy, woochy, baby, wordy.
You're making G3 blush. The CMC read the book to find out what went wrong. Apparently they didn't make a love potion. They made it a love poison. Hey, wait a minute. How the hell did both Twilight and the CMC misread the book? Alright, fine. Whoever is doing these text things is getting fired after this episode. Wait, but... No, it's not! No, it's not! We'll be right back after these messages and I get this dumbass under control.
This is the magic punch. It's really powerful.
And they'll destroy us all to make it happen! Destroy us all! 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 I'll take the chicken. Destroy us all! Destroy us all! Destroy us all!
You are a toy! You weren't the real Buzz Lightyear, you're an action figure! You are a child's plaything!
You are a sad, strange little man, and you have my pity. Farewell.
Everyone good? Shut up. Hearts and Hooves Day was made long ago by a prince who gave an alicorn princess the same recipe, but it caused them to become so enamored with each other that they couldn't perform their royal duties.
We've not only turned Big Mac and Miss Cheerily into a couple of nonsense-spouting nincompoops, we may have put all of Ponyville in jeopardy!
How? Are Cheerily and Big Mac really that important to the maintenance of the town? Wait, Scootaloo actually brings this up? Alright, fine, I'll give them a point for that. You know, you're really starting to annoy me. That wasn't a compliment. Stop calling me that! Even if Big Mac and Cheerily don't have royal duties, they still do have duties, which are pretty important to Ponyville. At least Cheerily does. We established in Appleplex season that Sweet Apple Acres could survive without him. Still, the poison will cause problems, but probably not to the level that Applebloom is suggesting. Either way, there's an antidote. If they can stop them from looking into each other's eyes for 1 hour, then the love poison will wear off. Here's a brilliant idea. Wait for them to go to sleep. I can't be the only one to have thought of this. And since this option is never explained or explored, I get to deduct another point. Ha! The CMC find Big Mac and Cheerily at Sugar Cube Corner.
You take it, Schnoodlebum.
No, you, Snooky Lump.
Oh, for the love of God, we get it already! Stop shoving it in our faces! Mrs. Cake sees how attracted they are to each other, and she suggests that they'll have a wedding soon. That gives Sweetie Belle an idea. At this point, I'd probably be done with Sweetie Belle's ideas. Her idea is to have them plan to get married, hoping that the preparations will keep them apart for that 1 hour time budget. Sweetie Belle places the idea in Big Mac and Cheerily's heads, and they seem to like it. So Big Mac goes to find a ring, and Cheerily goes to find a dress. 7 minutes left. I can do this. The CMC go after Cheerily and Big Mac to keep them occupied. Sweetie Belle gets dibs on Cheerily because her sister owns the town's dress shop, and Sweetie Belle ends up locking her in the changing room. Strangely, Rarity isn't in this episode. In fact, Twilight is the only member of the main 6 in this episode. Yeah, they really are trying hard to not piss off the shippers. They kinda already failed, by the way. Applebloom and Scootaloo try to distract Big Mac by annoying the jeweler for some reason. At one point, they turn their back and Big Mac disappears. Yeah, he's gone off to find Cheerily. And let me just say that that guy is unstoppable. The power of chemically forced love, I guess. Since tying him up isn't doing any good, Sweetie Belle and Scootaloo try something else. They dig a hole, and he falls in. But he starts calling for his... Shut up! Please, shut up! Cheerily runs out of Carousel Boutique, but the CMC have managed to keep them distracted for just long enough. Or did they? Not only is it hinted here that they still might be interested in each other, not to mention that mind control spells don't seem to wear off of Big Mac, they've been seen together in Spike at Your Service.
But no matter how good our intentions might have been, we should have never meddled in your relationship.
No, not a good moral. I have to award another point now. What's the opposite of a guilty pleasure? You know, something you're aware is good but you just can't stand? Here's a hint. Mine's Hearts and Hooves Day. After I said that I liked bad episodes like Mare-Do-Well and Pinky Keen, people were probably wondering if there was a good episode that I didn't like. The answer? Yes. Yes, there is. Hearts and Hooves Day isn't going to appear on my worst list, considering that there are more worthy candidates, but the stupid saccharine dialogue just kills any bit of enjoyment for me. Unfortunately, that's the only real flaw of the episode. Yes, I say unfortunately because I really wanted to fail this episode. But after critically analyzing it, It's structurally sound. Almost everything makes logical sense, and everyone is in character, or under the influence of a mind-altering drug. Yeah, there are a few problems like Twilight's book, and the 1 hour thing being mostly a cop-out, but there is more good in this episode than bad. It's just what is bad kills it for me. Megan McCarthy, the only writer who can make a good episode I don't like. Go figure. So no, I can't be too mad at this episode, but let me make this abundantly clear. I am never watching this episode again. Oh boy, I'm not going to win many friends with this one. This episode starts with Pinky, I guess being Pinky. Apparently, all of this something is to entertain the Cake Twins, and it has absolutely nothing to do with the rest of the episode. Oh yeah, I suppose I should get this out of the way. This episode has a ton of continuity porn. I swear, one day I'm gonna get a callback counter. Then again, it would probably break as soon as we got to an M.A. Larson episode. Pinky is going around saying hi to everyone she meets. I guess it's to establish that she's really, really friendly, because it hasn't been established in any previous episode. Oh yeah, it's also to introduce this character, Matilda the Donkey. Yes, she'll be important later. And that leads us into the song Smile, 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 or the Smile Song. Everyone loves this song. It's just so happy. It's so amazing. It's probably the best song in Season 2, if not the best single moment in Season 2. And it's the reason I have my songs don't affect my final rankings rule. I want to make this clear right now. I am critiquing the episode, not the song. Like Derpy's appearance in the last Roundup, this song eclipses the episode. People tend to forget that this episode has quite a few flaws. You want an example? There's a song in it that goes on for 3 minutes that has little to do with anything and establishes things we've already known. If this was better integrated into the episode, and I'll get to that later, then I would be willing to let it slide. But the plot doesn't get started until after the song is over, and that's already 6 minutes of screen time. This song is almost a big-lipped alligator moment. You know, like Pinky taking care of the twins earlier. I guarantee that if this song was in Mare-Do-Well, people probably wouldn't hate it. Now that you guys all hate me, I can get on to reviewing the actual episode. When the song ends, Pinky is face to face with a donkey. This is Cranky, and Pinky instantly tries to get to know him by annoying him mercilessly. Since Cranky finds Pinky annoying, he wants nothing to do with her friendship. And you know what? I'm giving the episode a point for this. This plot has been done before. Many times. A character who is friends to everyone finds someone that doesn't like them. Then the character goes through a ton of hoops to try and get them to like them, or at least find out why they don't like them. In the end, it turns out that there was no real reason that they didn't like them, and the character learns that they can't please all the people all the time, while the kids at home learn that they can hate people for no reason. Yes, I'm looking at you, Recess. Disclaimer, Recess was an awesome show that just happened to have an episode that had a bad moral. Sound familiar? I'm giving a point here because they actually give Cranky a legitimate and in-character reason to hate Pinky, much to her own surprising confusion. Pinky makes it her personal quest to make Cranky her friend. She starts by trying to converse with him, but only manages to annoy him further. Cranky states that he doesn't want any friends anymore. Pinky just ignores him and starts going through his stuff, which annoys him further. Yes, Pinky is acting a little childish. Is it in character for her? Honestly, you could go either way. Pinky literally hits him with the welcome wagon, and it ends up knocking off his wig. Pinky mistakes it as a spider and starts beating it up. Then for some reason, she calls tons of attention to Cranky's bald head. Yeah, they are drilling Pinky's annoyance a bit too much. She just keeps going and going and going. Luckily, the next few things she does actually do help. First, she takes him to the spa, and then she presents him with a custom-made toupee. Cranky thanks her, but he doesn't smile. Even though Pinky already covered up her mistakes, she's still intent on making him her friend. Pinky ends up at Cranky's house, despite not knowing where it is, and starts annoying him further. Apparently, Cranky has been searching all over Equestria, looking for a special friend.
No, you're extra special, kid.
Okay, give them a point for that. Then Pinky finds a scrapbook and manages to catch it on fire. She puts it out with water, causing it to turn to ash. Wow, I guess Pinky is extra special. Like I said, I'm glad you're actually giving Cranky a reason to hate Pinky, but this is kind of overkill. Cranky rightfully kicks Pinky out and says that he will never be her friend. Ever.
That's 4 evers. That's like forever!
Pinky goes to Twilight for help and tries to tell her that Cranky just wants to be left alone. Oh, hi Rainbow! Nice to see you here. Pinky admits that Twilight's right and she should just leave Cranky alone. But right after he accepts her apology, talk about a missed opportunity. If the episode ended right here, then I would be so happy that a cartoon could actually get this moral correctly. No, instead they've got to turn Pinky into a stalker. As I recall, this is the part where the episode becomes scary, and Pinky becomes even scarier. Don't believe me? Watch the episode like this. And once again, it just keeps going and going and going. Honestly, I don't know how Pinky could get even more horrifying. Oh god, there's 2 of them! Eventually, Pinky calmly tells Cranky that she's going to use one last-ditch effort in order to try to make it up to him. It turns out that Pinky found his old special friend, Matilda, the donkey from earlier. Pinky connected the dots using her super awesome memory and his scrapbook, which Matilda had a copy of. And then we get a flashback. Cranky and Matilda met at a grand galloping gala long ago, but when he came to her room, she was gone. And he didn't find her note that said she was going to Ponyville. And ever since that day, he's gone from town to town, getting increasingly broken. You know, that's actually pretty mature, and it does make up for some of Pinky's more immature antics in this episode. So, Cranky acknowledges Pinky's friendship, and then we get a moral.
Many different kinds of friends, and many ways to express friendship. Some friends like to run and laugh and play together, but others just like to be left alone, and that's fine too.
Is it a bad moral? No, it's more of an irrelevant moral. Different friends can have different interests. Yeah, it's one of those morals that doesn't give me merit to add or remove a point. Final ranking, 3 stars. Yeah, that sounds about right. I still feel that this show has come closer to reaching this particular moral than any other show I've seen, but just because you hit closer to the dartboard than your opponents doesn't mean you get any points for it. I suppose I should get this out of the way now. Friendship is magic is not the standard. It's above the standard. If an episode walks the standard kids show line, then, well, in most cases it won't fail, but it can't hope to get anything more than a 3-star ranking. I'll say right now, the people who won't leave you the hell alone are some of the most annoying people you'll ever meet. All this episode had to do is change course when Pinky was talking to Twilight, and Pinky may have ended up learning that particular lesson. You can't make everyone your friend, no matter how hard you try. Maybe that's not true. After singing that Smile song, everybody became Pinky's friend. Here's an idea. Maybe Pinky could have sung the song as a final last-ditch attempt to become Cranky's friend. That might have solved pretty much everything along with the episode. There's a reason the Smile song was injected into this episode, because probably no one would care for it otherwise. I don't want to hate on this episode, no one does. It's not a bad episode, more of that slacker episode that barely passes by. I will still always be grateful for this episode for bringing the song to existence. So, what's next? You are shitting me.
Fiery Joker, and...
Hello.
No collabs! No collabs!
Josh.
Okay, fine. I know how this goes. You have to threaten me in order to do a review with you. Okay, and that's great, I get that. Look, I'll do whatever you want. Just please let me keep my dignity!
Josh, calm down. I'm not going to do anything bad to you.
You're not? You're not gonna threaten or blackmail me?
No, I was gonna ask nicely. Why do you think I would use mean-spirited humor like that?
Occupational hazard?
And people call me the masochist. Back to why I'm here. I've heard you say that Double Rain Boom is the worst episode of the show. Or would be if it was an actual episode. To put it lightly, I highly disagree. There exists an episode within the show's canon that is far, far worse.
Oh heavens, worse than that? What could possibly be worse than Domo Moon?
It is a true abomination. One that goes completely against the friendly and optimistic nature of the show. An episode so bad, so mean-spirited, that it has scarred the psyche of lesser men. It is Putting Your Hoof Down.
No! Wait, what?
Putting Your Hoof Down.
Really?
Yes, but what's the problem?
I didn't think it was that bad.
What?
I'm serious, I don't think it's bad. Well, it's not on my favorites list, but still.
Considering I'm having a hard time believing that, I think we're going to need to take a look at this episode together.
Okay, fair enough. I mean, you hate it, I'm indifferent. That creates a nice contrast. I think. So, without further ado, let's review Putting Your Hoof Down.
So, this episode starts out with Fluttershy feeding her animals and generally being pushed around by them.
Oh, look, something different.
Okay, Mr. Picky Pants. Carrots, lettuce, and apples. Yum, yum, yum.
Here's a fun fact. Rabbits will actually die if you feed them the orange part and nothing but the orange part. They actually prefer the green at the top.
Good to know. I'll save this info for later.
Dark?
Well, I don't want you to starve.
Did Angel just slap Fluttershy? Okay, I know that Angel's not supposed to be the good guy here, but you can't just portray domestic abuse like that and make light of it.
I don't know if I'd go as far as to call it domestic abuse. This seems more like a bratty kid slapping his mom who's too much of a pushover to properly discipline her child. Besides, it was a rabbit slapping her. That doesn't hurt. My pet rats draw blood occasionally, and I don't hold it against them.
Well, if they start slapping you against the face, maybe you should.
I'll make your special recipe.
Yeah, no, skipping the intro.
After how mean-spirited that was, I think I need something a little more cheerful. We're not skipping it.
Yes we are.
No, we're not.
Yes we are.
No, we're not.
Yes we... Wait, I see where this is going. You're gonna try and make me do that Looney Tunes gag. Well, nope, I am not falling for it. We're not doing it.
No, we're not.
Yes we are.
No, we're not.
Yes we are.
No, we're not.
Yes we are, and that's final! So Fluttershy goes out to get ingredients for a salad, and we see that everyone is unusually hostile.
Excuse me.
You know, it's really funny how everyone in this town is suddenly a complete dick. Considering this episode came right after the one where everyone was singing about smiles and sunshine.
Or maybe they're just jerks to Fluttershy. I mean, if you think about it, Fluttershy is really the only pony who would not challenge that kind of behavior. It would explain her shy personality and why she lives away from everyone else.
So they basically bullied her into being a recluse.
Okay, that came out wrong.
Pardon me, sir.
Yes, it was.
Sorry, Fluttershy. You got out of line. You lost your spot. This is playground rules, kiddo.
Hey!
And suddenly 2 Valley girls.
Not sure if racist or ethnicist.
Not a word.
Shut up.
You are a pony with a problem.
You know, Pinky's right about that. Fluttershy is borderline socially incompatible.
But does that really excuse everyone else being a dick?
No. So Rarity decides to help Fluttershy and demonstrate how to be assertive by... flirting.
Staff, are you sure you want to teach little girls to offer insincere compliments and be a complete manipulative tease in order to get what they want?
Especially the way Rarity is doing it. It's obviously so sneaky and underhanded, and it would probably work on me, not gonna lie.
And that's why being asexual is awesome.
2 bits.
1 bit.
2 bits.
1 bit.
2 bits.
2 bits.
1 bit.
2 bits.
Rabbit season! Duck season! Rabbit season!
1 bit, and that's my final offer.
Have it your way, 1 bit it is.
Yeah, asserting yourself means scamming a store vendor. I mean, we're not even 5 minutes in, and this episode is already completely morally bankrupt.
I go for moral gray. She did scam a scammer after all. That would probably make that vendor think about setting reasonable prices from now on.
If that were true, then software piracy would be non-existent. 2 wrongs don't make a right. So Fluttershy decides to try her hand at being assertive. If you make that reference, I will kill you.
Aww.
You're handsome and strong and big. Handsome, strong guys are always nice to every pony, right?
6 out of 5. Plenty of bronies that'll work on.
10 bits for 1 cherry is outrageous. I insist on paying you 11 bits.
She's unassertive, not stupid.
I need that cherry no matter what it costs.
In that case, 20 bits.
Wow, what an asshole.
Oh, come on. Not every pony in Ponyville has to be a good person. These are characters we haven't seen yet.
True, but why does it seem like today Fluttershy just happened to meet every single jerk all at once? It's like Ponyville was today's venue at some sort of asshole convention.
Yeah, last year's was at Parliament.
Which one, the British or the Canadian?
Guess.
So, Fluttershy heads back to her home as cherryless as when she started.
Sorry there's no cherry on top, but the rest of it is exactly what you wanted.
Fluttershy, why'd you tell him? Seriously, what the f*** is wrong with that rabbit? He's a spoiled brat! I mean, what was that phrase they used in the Holy Grail?
Well, that's no ordinary rabbit. That's the most foul, cruel, and bad-tempered rodent you ever set eyes on.
Yeah, that's this character. How could Fluttershy let Angel get like this? Is there so much lack of discipline in this place that Angel's able to throw out his own caretaker? That's messed up!
There's a recipe for Hassenpfeffer in the description. Just saying.
Wow, you have serious anger issues. You know they have books for that.
I know. Let's continue, shall we?
As Celestia is my witness, I'm never gonna be a pushover again!
Wait, that doesn't make any sense. The phrase God is my witness only works because monotheists like myself believe that God is omnipresent. Celestia is not. Therefore, there is no way she would be able to witness Fluttershy making that oath.
Or could she?
What do you mean? Is it... That's not creepy. So, Fluttershy decides to attend the Assertiveness Seminar.
Wait, why are they holding it in a corn maze?
World building, I guess?
That's an odd choice. You know, I don't think the people who pushed Fluttershy really needed assertiveness training.
Also, that's a lot of ponies here just for a self-help seminar. Do this many ponies in Ponyville really need this training?
Considering the beginning of the episode, you wouldn't think so.
So, everything is set for the self-help guru to take the stage. Alright, so I'm sure we're gonna get a calm, reasonable, understandable individual who's more than willing to... Why is Eye of the Tiger playing? Okay, where do I begin with what is awesome about this character? Okay, first off, he's a Minotaur. Secondly, he enters the stage like he's friggin' TJ Mackey.
Who?
I don't know, I saw it on the wiki. Thirdly, his intro theme is Eye of the Friggin' Tiger. Fourthly, he sounds like the world friggin' champ Hercule Satan. Is there any way they can make this character more ridiculously awesome?
But I pity the fool who doubts Iron Will's methods.
Oh, I get it now. Holding the seminar in a corn maze is an allusion to the original myth of the Minotaur.
But doesn't that seem the least bit counterproductive and just odd? Also, if we're going to look to the original myth for inspiration, here's a question. What do goats have to do with Minotaur?
Guess I need to show Equestria's low-class labor force or something.
So Fluttershy, a glossophobic, is called onto the stage. This can only end so well.
Whoa, he's blocking your path. What are you gonna do about it?
Go back home and try again tomorrow?
Fluttershy, you don't need to see a self-help guru. You need to see a shrink.
So Fluttershy goes through the training, seems to take a natural shine to it, and decides to apply it in everyday life.
Treat me like a pushover and you'll get the once-over.
That doesn't even rhyme.
Ahem! Can you move? You're blocking my path. Yeah, in a minute.
Wait, are those the same ponies from earlier?
Nope.
What? Why is every pony in this town a Valley Girl all of a sudden?
Who cares? Fluttershy, fly over the garbage truck. You have wings. My Little Pony, ladies and gentlemen, friendship is vandalism, assault, and littering.
One of those is not like the other ones.
Have you watched SpongeBob?
Touche.
And what can I get for you today? Now go to the back of the line where you belong!
Wait, why did they all give Fluttershy leeway? Her rage wasn't directed at them.
I have a better question. Why is Pinky, or more importantly the cakes, okay with Fluttershy scaring their customers away?
You laugh at me, I wrath at you!
I didn't know assertive also meant easily offended. Pinky wasn't even mocking Fluttershy, so that mantra is completely inapplicable here.
Cut in line, I'll take what's mine!
Wow, Iron Will managed to turn Fluttershy into a complete sociopath. Without cheating because the plot says so.
Focus on this episode, Josh.
Sorry.
No pony pushes new Fluttershy around!
I'm pretty sure if she had fingers, she'd be flipping someone off right here.
Someone is probably making an Equestria Girls vector of that as we speak.
Surprised that doesn't exist already.
This day is yours, and no pony's gonna take it away from you. Am I right?
Mommy, why is the nice pony being so mean to the animals?
That's a good point. Throughout these jokes, where Fluttershy keeps bullying other ponies for small things, I wasn't thinking, oh, that's funny slapstick. I was thinking, are you sure you're not scaring kids with this?
And new Fluttershy does not want the wrong mail delivered to her cottage.
Oh, did I mix them up again?
You apologize, I penalize.
Wow, even male ponies abuse male ponies. That's gotta be the worst job in Equestria.
Excuse me, do you know how to get to the Ponyville Tower?
Her, yes.
And so, here we come to the part of the episode that everyone seems to go nuts about. Fluttershy's little tirade against her friends.
And for good reason. Fluttershy completely demeans and insults Rarity and Fluttershy's reason for existing, their purpose in life, all done brutally and with next to no hesitation.
Honestly, I'm not bothered by this all that much.
What?
Hang on. I don't particularly like this moment. But it makes sense. I mean, look, Fluttershy's rage and assertiveness was being built up throughout the entire episode, so it makes sense for it to reach a climax where shit goes down and it affects her friends.
That may explain why she's saying this, but it doesn't exactly explain what she's saying. I have to wonder, does Fluttershy really believe this, or is she lying specifically to hurt her best friends?
I honestly think it could be either or. Fluttershy is shown to have plenty of negative things to say about her friends, but never does so out of fear of hurting their feelings. Her current power trip means she has no such compunctions now. She could slightly believe in what she's saying, but she's emphasizing and exaggerating it because she's high on adrenaline.
Compunctions to hurt her friends. You're saying she wanted to hurt them?
Maybe. I think. I don't know. It depends on how you look at it. The way I see it, Fluttershy was pushed around all throughout the episode. However, Ironwheel's teachings have allowed her to finally get her way. Now that her friends are telling her that what she's doing is wrong, she's attacking them because she thinks they're trying to take from her all of the good things that have happened to her.
That's kind of going into headcanon territory.
Fair enough. Still, I can see why some people would think that this little moment is a little uncharacteristic of the show's tone. I mean, it does feel slightly unnatural. It sounds less like Fluttershy is saying true words, and it's more the writer blowing off some sort of anger or frustration and using Fluttershy as a mouthpiece.
Oh dear.
What was that?
Nothing! Pay it no heed! Oh my god, they're everywhere!
I can't believe that the two most frivolous ponies in Ponyville are throwing their own lives away on pointless pursuits that no pony else gives a flying about.
Hey, you put a censor over that.
Does it even matter?
You want wimp Fluttershy. You want pushover Fluttershy.
You know, Fluttershy does have a point here. I mean, this is what all the fans want. So Fluttershy chases her friends away with her hurtful words and goes all pseudo-Hulk.
I'm the monster.
So, Fluttershy goes to mope about her monsterness, and her house has become condemned. How much time has passed?
Fluttershy, are you in there? It's Pinkie Pie and Rarity.
I love it how forgiving the Fluttershy's friends are here. I mean, think about it. How would you react if someone you knew and trusted told you that what you've dedicated your entire life to was petty or simple or stupid?
I'd forgive her. Well, once I was done being mad. I mean, sure, what she said was bad, but good friendships don't die after just one fight.
Right, but they don't seem even the least bit mad. Even though Pinkie Pie keeps mentioning it, to which Rarity has to forcefully remind her to be tactful, it seems a little light considering what just happened. There's no anger or resentment or sorrow.
Should there be? Do you really want more unpleasant to be added on top of the pile? Or do you want to see friends acting as friends should, forgiving, tactful, and trying to make amends?
I would definitely love the latter, but I hate how this is just glanced over. A lot of time seems to have passed in the show, but to the audience it seems almost immediately after. These things take time and communication, and some in this particular instance seem to be solved without.
Okay, I'll give you that, but that doesn't happen all the time. This might be another moment that depends on how you look at it. Sometimes people are quick to anger and quick to forgive, like Pinkie Pie here, or have so much experience with friends and others that they can analyze situations and look at things objectively, like Rarity.
Fair enough, but are you sure about Pinkie Pie? Considering that she thought her friends had forgotten about her because her friends were ignoring her for just a day, something like that would bound to have some really lasting effects. I mean, who's to say that this wouldn't harbor a grudge that would come out in a later episode?
It's like you were living your own personal worst nightmare!
Karma?
Every pony will be a lot safer with me and my mean mouth locked away.
Is Angel good now that he tied Fluttershy up?
I don't know, he could still be doing that because he's a jerk.
Meh.
Meh.
Whenever I try to assert myself, I become a monster.
Obvious symbolism is obvious.
Okay, do the horns mean Fluttershy is a beast or the devil? If so, does that make her fans Satanists? Then Iron Will comes to collect his due from Fluttershy, completely ignoring how run down her house looks.
Iron Will's my name, training ponies is my game.
Is that the new catchphrase?
Iron Will is here to collect Iron Will's fee.
Wait, don't you collect your money before the seminar? Or after if you don't do it then?
Better question, how exactly did he track her down? He never seemed to ask for her name and address.
So then Rarity and Pinkie Pie try to distract Iron Will until they can get Fluttershy out.
Half day! Full day!
We need half a day and no more!
Well, you'll get a full day and no less!
Okie dokie. See you tomorrow.
Wait, what?
I swear, Pinkie Pie is an eldritch abomination.
Your payment is overdue, Fluttershy!
Okay, Iron Will is such a ham.
Well, yeah, he's half bull.
That joke sucks, and you suck for making it.
During your workshop, you promised 100% satisfaction guaranteed, or you pay nothing. Well, I'm not satisfied.
Wait, this doesn't make any sort of sense. Fluttershy was being assertive so she can get out of paying Iron Will because she was asserting that she wasn't satisfied. But if it weren't for Iron Will, she wouldn't have gotten more assertive, so shouldn't she be satisfied that Iron Will in a roundabout way was able to make her more assertive? And shouldn't she have to pay? Considering the way that Iron Will does his teachings, it's almost a paradox. If his clients do pay because they're satisfied with his assertiveness training, they're being doormats. And if his clients assert that they don't have to pay because they aren't satisfied, he both succeeded and failed at the same time. If you... Josh? Oh my god, I think I broke him. We'll be right back. So Iron Will doesn't get paid, and he leaves on his goats that can somehow support his weight.
This was weird. I mean, I suppose I should be happy that Iron Will got told off and got out of this empty-handed, but at the same time I feel he kinda got scammed.
I have a theory. While Iron Will is the antagonist, he's an antagonist in the pure sense of the word. He did give Fluttershy bad advice to be sure, but it was Fluttershy who took it to the extreme.
Yeah, I agree. I notice Iron Will usually gets all of the blame for turning Fluttershy into Flutterbitch when he really doesn't deserve it all that much.
Sometimes it can be hard for a shy pony like me to stand up for myself. But I've learned that standing up for yourself isn't the same as changing who you are.
You can also teach a lesson like this without being this unpleasant.
Dude, calm down. It is not that bad.
Right.
Okay, while I do see why this is one of the most hated episodes of the show, I'm personally ambivalent to it. Yes, it's got serious flaws like the townsfolk randomly being discourteous jerks, but there are a lot of things I liked about it. Iron Will was a great character, this was actually a big leap for Fluttershy's character development, and we even got some new world-building tidbits, which is always a plus.
Well, I still think this is a particularly bad episode, it's still my least favorite of the show. While we did get some funny Looney Tunes physical humor, we also got very unfunny and mean-spirited physical humor. Mean-spiritedness can be fine in some places, but here isn't one of them. I feel that some points go above and beyond in that department, and it's quite frankly jarring. Jarring to these characters and jarring to the show itself.
I don't think there's too much that's technically wrong with this, but it is filled with too many unfortunate implications for my liking. That's mainly due to the fact that some points are rushed and some parts are padded. If they fixed up the pacing, this episode would have probably worked a lot better, as it does have a ton of great ideas. It was also logically sound, and I understand what they were going for. Don't confuse bullying for assertiveness, and this is a good lesson to teach. But in all fairness, both Powerpuff Girls and SpongeBob did it better. I'm the Fiery Joker.
I'm Mr. Enter.
And, wow, can't believe I got through this entire review without getting assaulted.
Yeah, I don't think anyone wants to pick a fight with you now that you're technically in your mom's basement.
You insult my room, I go
cut.
Get dogs! Get dogs! Get dogs! Get dogs! Here comes the punchline. Get up! I got no time to sit and wait for you. I'm ready to fight.
This episode starts with a dream sequence that has absolutely nothing to do with anything. It ends when Spike gets woken up by Twilight, who is pacing around nervously. Apparently, Twilight has just finished planning out her schedule for the month, but forgot to plan time for her next one. So she's freaking out about deadlines. This episode already scares me. Twilight has been staying up all night rescheduling, when strange magic starts swirling and causing a huge mess. Then another Twilight appears, who looks like she's been through a battle zone.
It's not scientifically possible. You are not scientifically possible.
Says the unicorn with the magic horn. Future Twilight is from next Tuesday morning and has come to give Twilight a warning.
I have something extremely important to tell you about the future, and I only have a few seconds, so you've got to listen. Whatever you do,
But she gets sent back to the future before she can finish. I'll talk about this sometime in the future, let's say. Twilight takes the warning to mean that there's going to be some kind of disaster, and she herself has to prevent it. Yeah, I guess this episode is predictable, but that does seem like a conclusion that Twilight would reach. Oh good, you're working on that thing we talked about. Twilight tells the townsponys that there's going to be a crisis. They do laugh at her, but Twilight seems genuine enough to alert concerns from her friends. Okay, give them a point for that.
No?
Is that worth 2 points? You know what? I'm in a mood for a good laugh. Give them another point. So, Twilight instructs everyone to start fixing the town. The montage is alright, I guess, but I can't help but be reminded of Mare-Do-Well, considering that some of the set pieces are the same. And then Cerberus appears, straight from Tartarus. I would give them a point for this one, except that it ends in an anticlimax. Fluttershy subdues him, and Twilight asks Pinkie if she has a ball she could borrow.
I have balls stashed all over Ponyville.
No comment. Twilight returns Cerberus, but doesn't get back until the next day. Then Spike barfs up a letter, which gives Twilight a scar, just like the one from her future self. And that leads her to the conclusion that she hasn't changed the future at all. She eventually gets the idea to do nothing. Literally, to do nothing at all. She plans on staying like that until next Tuesday. Yeah, good luck with that. Spike instantly takes advantage of that and starts eating ice cream. Rainbow Dash comes in and not only makes fun of Twilight, starts messing with her. It ends when Twilight tosses Spike against a wall and he accidentally burps a ball of fire back at her, screwing up her hair. This worries Twilight further, to the point where she wishes she could see the future. Apparently Spike knows some pony who can tell the future. Madam Pinkie. Yep, Pinkie's a fortune teller now. Sure, I'll go with it. I do really like Pinkie in this episode. I already gave her 2 points, and it's not likely I'm going to give her another, but I'm just saying. Pinkie sees into the future. Apparently, Twilight will get a really cool birthday present next year. That's actually a pretty clever idea, considering that Pinkie's probably going to be the one who gives it to her. Then Pinkie's Pinkie sense kicks in. Yeah, that's back. And a potted plant falls on Twilight's head, because cartoons. Now we come to one of the things that gets people divided on this episode. Twilight's behavior. I've said repeatedly that I don't like Twilight when she's stupid, but somehow Emmy Larson got it right. Let me explain. Twilight has gotten the bright idea to
monitor everything.
And so she hasn't slept in a few days. And also, a pot landed on her head. So she does have a couple of excuses to not think logically. But here's the thing. She is thinking logically, just getting increasingly panicked. She's not simply missing the obvious for plot convenience. Pinkie comes to visit, considering that she hasn't seen Twilight since the flower pot incident. Hey, a legitimate reason to check up on Twilight. And Pinkie finds her like this. And Spike is still eating ice cream. It's, semi-important that you know that. Twilight asks Pinkie to move the telescope in techno-jargon, so she can't comprehend, and she doesn't move it. And so when Twilight looks through the telescope, she ends up blinding herself in one eye. And Pinkie gives her an eye patch, which is yet another sign. Then Twilight gets another idea.
I'll just have to stop time.
So they go to Canterlot, and does every pony have stealth suits? Is it like the equestrian version of formal wear? Instead of fancy suits and dresses, they have stealth suits in the back of their closet? They start sneaking around. And yeah, the Metal Gear Solid reference is kind of cool. But as Spike points out, it's not illegal to walk around Canterlot, or I guess the castle. So they sneak around for a while and end up exactly where they came in. Then a guard catches them and lets Twilight into the library. Twilight walks up to a mirror and sees herself in it. It seems that every single sign has already happened. So they go around searching for a scroll to stop time. And here's something else I forgot to mention. I really like the background music in this episode. The sun rises and nothing happens. Then Twilight realizes that she was worried over nothing. If the episode ended right here, I would be ready to give it a gold 5-star ranking. But Pinkie finds a spell that allows Twilight to go back in time. She uses it to attempt to warn her past self to do nothing. Take a guess what happens. Yeah, the same thing that happened at the beginning of the episode. Way to give me Mass Effect flashbacks. It seems that most people hate this episode because of missed opportunities. Because of all the things they could do with time travel. I personally don't mind because there's no law that says they can only do time travel once. Now, the only thing I hate in this episode is the ending. I do keep saying that it's the journey, not the destination, but there still is a limit. Pinkie and her antics really make this episode for me. I mean, you could have just had Pony start panicking, but they went the extra mile to have Pinkie start leading it. There is the possibility that I'm being too generous to this episode, considering I'm a little beaten right now. I mean, look at the last few episodes I reviewed. The most annoying episode in the show, an episode that is the epitome of mediocrity, and an utter train wreck. At this point, I'm gonna even like the lesser stuff. And what's next? Why do I even ask you people? Did you ever feel like there were people specifically trying to piss you off? Take Meriwether Williams. She seemed to piss off everyone with the Mysterious Mare-Do-Well, only to find out that I could tolerate it. And after I could tolerate her second episode as well, she decided to join forces with someone who had previously pissed me off, Charlotte Fullerton. Together they were an amazing team, not only doing everything wrong, but doing terrible things I never even expected. But the question still remains, can Meriwether piss me off on her own? Well, she's got a great advantage by choosing the Spike episode. Let's see if she can do it. This episode starts with Rainbow trying to get Fluttershy to watch a dragon migration. Of course, she's scared and wants nothing to do with it at all.
Look, Fluttershy, I watched that boring butterfly migration with you.
You're off to a great start. You put Rainbow Dash in the right to make the joke funnier? Where did you learn comedy? It's like you made the joke in the exact wrong way. It'd be a lot funnier, and it probably wouldn't piss me off if Fluttershy was in the right. Every pony else is in the trench, waiting for the dragon migration to begin. When Rarity... Okay, what the hell did you do to her? By the way, that's Flanderization. The dragons start flying and impress the ponies. Spike comes by, handing out snacks. And of course, Rainbow Dash starts laughing at him for wearing a pink apron. So, let me get this straight. Rainbow Dash is laughing at Spike for doing something feminine, and the episode puts her in the right. Wow, Meriwether, you really are trying to piss me off. The rest of them point out that Spike doesn't have to look or act like other dragons in the most condescending way possible.
The way he is. I don't act like other dragons?
Oh, not even close.
But why would you want to, Spike?
You don't act like other dragons, but why would you want to? Wow, Meriwether, you are really good at this. You don't act like other boys, but why would you want to? You don't act like other girls, but why would you want to? You don't act like others of your race, but why would you want to? You've been through this before. Think through your implications! That gives Spike some kind of existential crisis, and he begins wondering what he is and what he's supposed to be. Twilight tells him that she doesn't know anything about dragons, and then we do have a pretty interesting scene where Spike looks at himself in the mirror and starts wondering all of this. That gets Twilight to decide to do some research. Of course, they don't find any books on dragons.
No, it's hard to believe, but ponies know next to nothing about dragons.
Except their migration patterns. They can sleep for 100 years, or that greed causes them to grow.
Apparently they're too rare and too scary to try to talk to or study.
Let me get this straight. You have books about diseases that haven't appeared for hundreds of years, and yet you don't have books on creatures that practically migrate over your house. Rarity and Rainbow decide to visit Twilight for breakfast, I guess. Whatever. Spike has decided to go on a journey to join the dragon migration. Well, after that scene earlier, I'm having trouble calling them friends. Try to stop him. And for some reason, Twilight decides to let him go. Oh, how caring she is. Except she has all three of them follow him from a distance. Then we get some nice filler until Spike reaches the dragon migration.
Alright, teenage dragons. Now that's more my speed.
You're a baby dragon, not a... Never mind. Then Twilight, Rainbow, and Rarity come in wearing... that thing.
Pish posh. This costume is fabulous. One of my finer creations.
Really? So, your own business, gala dresses for all your friends, a dragon costume. Spike tries to introduce himself, but he ends up getting teased mercilessly. More assholes, Merryweather? Really? Oh, by the way, you know that implication thing I was talking about earlier? It lasts throughout the whole episode.
Explains it. I knew there was something vaguely ponyish about you. Or maybe you're a pony in a dragon costume.
Yeah.
Why are you deepening your voice, Twilight? There are female dragons, right? Right? Spike wants to prove that he's a real dragon, and the only way he could do that is by acting like one. So he's challenged to stereotypically masculine, draconic things like a belching contest, wrestling, King of the Horde, and basically physically harming himself. And dragons have no respect for equine authority, by the way. Spike eventually manages to gain acceptance after he puts himself in extreme physical pain. With this new acceptance, Spike wants to stay here forever. No, Pinky, I am not in the mood right now. Now the dragons want to go on a raid and steal some phoenix eggs. Okay, first of all, why do immortal birds need to lay eggs? And secondly, you're just loving to build this up. Dragons not only have no respect for ponies, they do stupid shit all day, and now they steal animal eggs at night. Spike lures the phoenixes away, but they find out the eggs have hatched, and they decide to take the hatchlings. Oh, you're shitting me. Luckily, they fly away, and the dragons get to chase after them. The phoenixes do get away after one of the parents uses solar beam. Then the dragons come back to find Spike with a phoenix egg, and they tell him to smash it. You know what? We're done here. No, wait, I have to finish this. Spike refuses to smash it, and he stands up to the dragons. Then Twilight, Rainbow Dash, and Rarity come to Spike's defense by running away. Can somebody remind me why they were in this episode? Spike keeps the egg when it hatches because kidnapping's cool now. Wow, that's a really depressing shot, since the rest of the main six were Twilight's friends as long as they were Spike's, and it looks like they took that picture without him. I guess to answer the question I posted at the beginning, yes, Merryweather can piss me off on her own. I know what Merryweather was trying to do here, show us the dangers of peer pressure, but she did it in the worst possible way.
Made me wonder what it meant to be a dragon. But now I realize that who I am is not the same as what I am.
Yes, Spike, you don't need to be a stereotype, even if every single other person like you falls into the stereotype. I repeatedly drew the lines between gender because that's what we saw. Only the morally superior female ponies and the brutish male dragons doing stereotypical stupid male bullshit. But you can draw the line any way you want. You could draw it between age, or you can even draw it between race. You want to see this plot done right? Watch the Gravity Falls episode, Dipper vs. Manliness. In it, Dipper gets made fun of for listening to girly music, so he goes on a quest to learn masculine behavior. He finds a tribe who does the stereotypical masculine stuff, just like here, and he actually does it for a while, until he's instructed to kill a creature. Sound familiar yet? Here's the difference. Dipper finds out that the creature likes the same kind of music, and deciding the creature is a nice guy, he stands up to the manly tribe. They chase him out, saying that he'll never be a man. When he returns to civilization, his grunkle Stan tells Dipper that he was his own man and stood up for what was right. That's how you do it. In simplest terms, you need to have a character be taught how to defy a stereotype by someone who could normally fall in the stereotype. If you don't, like was done here, it can come off as offensive and seem like you were trying to reinforce existing stereotypes. And I thought it was just me, but wasn't this show so great because it not only defies, but shuts down stereotypes? I guess what I'm trying to say is, I find this episode insulting to what the show stands for. I guess we can call that an improvement from Merryweather's last effort. A breath of fresh air. This episode starts with Rainbow Dash calling all the town's Pegasi for a meeting. Fluttershy gets one of the flyers and goes into hiding, as a tree. Alright, give them a point for that one. We then get a 50s era movie that explains what's going on. Pegasi need to create a tornado to propel water up to Cloudsdale to create rain clouds, plain and simple. And now it's Ponyville's turn. By the way, does this sound like the Powerpuff Girls narrator to anyone else, or is it just me? To do this, they need a minimum of 800 wing power. Because Spitfire from the Wonderbolts is going to be watching, Rainbow Dash wants them to break the record of 1,000. Fluttershy is seen cowering, and she disappears. The next day, Rainbow Dash is training all the Pegasi.
Yeah!
That's running gag throughout the episode. If it works for you, fine. As I was saying, though, Rainbow Dash is training all the Pegasi.
Every pony except Fluttershy.
She goes to visit Fluttershy only to find out that she's come down with something called the Pony Pox.
Really knocked me for a loop. Achoo!
Wow, I never thought I'd find a worse liar than Applejack. Rainbow Dash dumps water on her, and the paint she used for the spots wears off. I guess we can call them even for what Fluttershy did in the last episode. Fluttershy still doesn't want to go to tornado training though, so she fakes breaking her wing. Rainbow Dash startles her with a whistle, causing her to leap into the air and hover, disproving the lie. Then Rainbow Dash tries asking what's going on in a very caring and supportive way. Fluttershy eventually admits that she had horrible stage fright, caused by being bullied a lot when she was younger.
Cozy
She doesn't even want to risk the humiliation again.
Suck it up, Fluttershy! This is no time for... I mean, confidence or no confidence. I'm gonna need every Pegasus to break the record, including you!
Wow, she realized who she was talking to and changed her tone immediately. That's pretty good. That conversation is enough to get Fluttershy to go along with it. Then innuendo, and next scene. Twilight and Spike are there to measure the Pegasi's wing power, when they notice some pony coughing. Several Pegasi run and test their wing power with the instruction to at least get a 10.0. The Pegasi do pretty good until it's Fluttershy's turn. She starts flying and a couple of Pegasi start laughing. They might be laughing at her, or they might be just laughing at a joke. I really don't know. Either way, it gets Fluttershy to have flashbacks of her bullying, and she slows down to the point where she's barely able to stay airborne, and she scores 0.5.
0.5? Isn't that like lesson 1? Ow!
Thank you, Twilight. Why couldn't you do that when Rainbow was making fun of Spike in the last episode? Then we get this scene. Yeah, that's not creepy, not at all.
Some punks poked a little fun at you when you got stage fright. You aren't gonna go quit just because of that, are you? Yes!
Jesus. That's definitely emotionally charged. We see Fluttershy being comforted by her animal friends. And yes, they reused a soundbite again. Right now, it doesn't really matter. Hey, even Angel's being helpful. I might as well. Fluttershy eventually decides to at least try to train and overcome her social anxiety. So we get a montage, and yes, it is awesome. After it, she comes back full of confidence. So she flies through the track and scores a 2.3. What do you mean we're at the maximum? If I could add another point for the scene, I would. This episode shows that even if you try your best, you still might not succeed. And it gets around to showing that you still shouldn't give up. A lesson it's not even really trying to teach. Rainbow and Twilight try to make her feel better, but they are unable to. Spike assures Rainbow that she has enough wing power to break the record, but it's clearly not what's on her mind. Hey, can I detect a point from Spike's snide comments so I can give this a point? Thank you! The next day they're ready to begin, but several Pegasi have come down with something called the feather flu that put them in the hospital. With all of those sick Pegasi, they might not have enough wing power to lift the water to Cloudsdale, let alone break the wing speed record. Rainbow decides she doesn't care, and they're going to try it anyway. They start flying and create some interesting visuals. Fluttershy comes by for moral support, and learns that 8 Pegasi are out sick. Some of the Pegasi in the tornado get too tired, and it starts to break apart, launching Rainbow Dash into a tree. Even though she's failed, she demands to have her crew try again. They don't seem to mind, so I won't count this against her. They start flying, and as they get going, there's the constant fear that they're going to break up again. They hit 795 wing power, and it won't go any further. Fluttershy gets handed some flight goggles, and with Twilight's encouragement, goes into the tornado. Then Fluttershy starts flying faster than she ever flew before. When Pegasi start passing her, her fears catch up to her, but she makes it clear that they will not stop her, and with Fluttershy's help, they reach the 800 wing power minimum. Why does that surprise you? Don't you normally supervise this thing? When the tornado breaks up, Fluttershy is still flying around in circles. Rainbow stops her, and everyone else congratulates her. We're still at the maximum, aren't we? My maximum episode score is still 5 stars, and this episode clearly deserves it. But I can also give it my first platinum. For an episode to get a platinum from me, it needs to be more than just good, more than spectacular. It needs to touch on my emotions in all the right ways. Just like for an episode to get a 0, it needs to touch on my emotions in all the wrong ways. You really feel for Fluttershy in this episode. You want to see her succeed in ways that I don't think we've yet seen. The biggest complaint lodged against this episode is that Fluttershy's repeating the same lesson she somehow learned in putting your hoof down. Okay, for a few seconds, let's pretend that episode isn't a colossal train wreck, and she learned how to assert herself correctly. That was dealing with external conflict and not being taken advantage of. This was dealing with internal conflict and not letting stage fright get the better of you. Those are two very different conflicts. Besides, if the worst part of your episode is that it's a better retread of an old episode, fixing pretty much everything wrong with it, I think you're doing pretty good. Honestly, this episode is like stone perfect. I guess the only way you could not like it is if you don't like Fluttershy. And after this episode, any animosity I held towards her from her previous episode has just magically evaporated. It still doesn't fully forgive her, but she is back in my good graces. As a last word, I want to personally thank Cindy Morrow for not only creating something beautiful, but rekindling my faith in the show after Merryweather nearly destroyed it, and reminding me why I still watch this show. This episode starts with the CMC being depressed because someone else in their class got a cutie mark. Apple Bloom comes out exclaiming that she has the answer to all of their problems. But before she can explain, Granny Smith calls her away. Scootaloo and Sweetie Belle do everything they can with the newspaper, except for read it. When they're out of ideas, they return to Apple Bloom angrily, and she tells them the painfully obvious, that they should write for it. At least one of them's not stupid. So the three of them decide to join the school paper, the Full Free Press. Okay, this already puts it ahead of other CMC episodes. In most CMC episodes, they're just doing a variety of random things for a few seconds. In this one, they choose something and they really go in depth with it. That's how you do it. Shirley explains to the newspaper recruits that the editor-in-chief is pretty much the boss, since she herself is just an advisor. And then she reveals that the editor-in-chief is Diamond Tiara. She comes in and immediately starts treating it like it's a huge multimedia corporation.
Think pieces. No more namby-pamby stories like last year's editor. Namby-pamby was a great editor.
Alright, give them a point for that. The CMC decide that if being journalists is really their special talent, they can at least try to tolerate Diamond Tiara. Hey, if they can do it, I can at least try to do it too, because I really hate Diamond Tiara just like everyone else. So the CMC go around to try to find stories, but they come up with nothing that Diamond Tiara thinks is good enough. Then they find snips and snails attached to each other by gum. And yes, they really are that stupid. The CMC decide to turn this into a story. The school goes gaga over this new story because I guess they don't get enough of Snips and Snails acting like idiots in person. Diamond Tiara is actually impressed with them and moves them to a gossip column to get more stories like that under the pseudonym Gabby Gums. They go out to find more gossip, only to find that it's all dried up. We cut to Rarity, who trips over Sweetie Belle's saddlebag. It comes open, and Rarity's tempted to search through it. She actually tries to resist, which yeah, I think is worth a point. She does give in though, and takes interest in the school's paper. Rarity's laughter attracts Sweetie Belle, and she's just a little miffed.
How dare you!
I really wish I knew how they got Sweetie Belle's voice to do that without it coming off as grating. Rarity likes the paper so much she wants to show it to her friends. That excites Sweetie Belle, and she goes back to Apple Bloom and Scootaloo with the new idea to start spreading their gossip to all of Ponyville. That's another one to add to the list. So they start getting gossip on random members of the town. Like the Cake Twins crying. I don't know. Eventually, the Ponyville newsstand wants to carry the Full Free Press, and the CMC are excited with what they're doing. In fact, it seems that all of Ponyville is excited with what they're doing. The main six and Spike are at the spa, and they're excited about the Gabby Gums story too. Rainbow Dash runs in, hyped up about a story that everyone else already read. Twilight keeps telling them that Gabby Gums is being a little too mean. No one else seems to mind, though.
Mayor, not naturally gray. The mayor in a mean dying scandal?
So that's where the money to fix the town hall went. Rarity tries to get Rainbow to enjoy some pampering, and she almost goes for it, while we see one of the Full Free workers in the background. Rainbow stops before it happens, and claims that she'd love it if Gabby Gums did a story on her, even though everything Gabby Gums had ever written was negative. Maybe that tortoise was a perfect match for Rainbow. Spike lets it out that Gabby Gums already did a story on him. Diamond Tiara doesn't like it though, because it puts someone in a positive light. Then the CMC reveal that they were feeling pretty guilty for doing all of that gossip, and that story was an attempt to change their image. Of course, they still want their journalism cutie marks, and so to please Diamond Tiara, they become even meaner. Now they're telling lies. Mostly. And the stories become about each of the main six. You know what I didn't realize the first couple of times I watched this episode? Fluttershy doesn't have a single line in it, and yet she's just as involved as the rest of the main six. That's actually kind of impressive. And the story Rainbow wanted comes to bite her in her reputation. Rarity is willing to defend Gabby Gums until she finds a story about herself and her private diary. Whoa. That's intense. The main six decide that they have to stop Gabby Gums, and Twilight suggests that Sweetie Belle might know who Gabby Gums is, since she also works on the paper. Rarity actually doesn't believe that Sweetie Belle would do something like that, until she finds her diary in her saddlebags. I think that whole moment is worth another point. So Rarity confronts Sweetie Belle, and she's understandably upset. Hey, they even point out that it was wrong when Rarity searched through Sweetie Belle's saddlebags, and they don't even make it the point of the conflict. Rarity convinces Sweetie Belle and the rest of the CMC apparently to try and quit. Unfortunately, Diamond Tiara won't allow it. If they try to quit, she'll reveal some embarrassing photos of them from when they first try to get stories. Some people have a problem with her little plan here, since by logic it didn't work. If she prints the stories, then she'll no longer have any dirt on the CMC, and the stories aren't really that embarrassing. I think you're missing the point of blackmail. It doesn't need to be logical. All it needs is the person who's being blackmailed to find it threatening. It seems that Rarity blew the whistle on the CMC, and so now everyone knows, and everyone has the same kind of retaliation to them, but only minor things like pouring rain on their head or simply not talking to them. Since their reputations were pretty much destroyed, it's a believable retort. You know, unlike that thing that I don't like talking about. The next morning, the CMC come by with a new story at the last possible second, so Diamond Tiara doesn't have the time to read it. In it, they reveal who they are and apologize for everything. Hey, they actually learn their lessons. And for the most part, it seems that every pony forgives them. And finally, Shirley demotes Diamond Tiara from the editor-in-chief. Since it took too long for no apparent reason, I have to deduct a point for that. With the exception of the Cutie Pox Chronicles, which I usually consider an entire cast episode anyway, I think this is the best CMC episode to date. A lot of people seem to hate this episode, the most notable being Buck Brony, and let me be the first to state that I don't get it. Is it Diamond Tiara? She was in Family Appreciation Day more, and she was worse in that episode. And just remember that if you hate an episode because of Diamond Tiara, then she wins, and you don't want that. Is it because everyone was mean to the CMC? You know, after they told vicious lies about them? I thought it was pretty warranted, unlike some certain other bits of revenge. And yes, I'm done talking about that until my Season 2 overview. There were definitely some minor things wrong with this episode, like Shirley not realizing that Diamond Tiara had too much power even after all Ponyville was reading the column. But it's nothing to kill this episode over, and it really doesn't detract from the experience. This episode starts with Pinkie Pie fawning over a cake that the Cakes are going to be entering in a national dessert competition. Apparently they're not going with it though. Pinkie Pie is. It does seem odd, but someone has to run the business while someone else watches the cake. So it was either Pinkie Pie watch over a competition entry, or it was have her watch over the cake's livelihood. Getting the cake on the train is no easy task, and requires the assistance of all the main six and Big Mac. Pinkie invites the rest of the main six to accompany her to Canterlot for the competition. On the train, Applejack reaches for the cake, and Pinkie stops her. Then she begins talking about how amazingly wonderful it is. Now I'm hungry. Thanks for that, Pinkie. A few other bakers enter the train. We have Gustav the Griffin, who has eclairs. Then we have Donut Joe, with donuts. Maybe that's why the residents of Equestria have names that fit their talent so much. They can just change them on a whim. And finally, we have Mulia Mild. Nice reference. With a moose made of mousse. So the train gets going.
Well, it sure looks like we're in for a delicious competition tomorrow. Maybe we should all settle in for a good night's sleep.
Why? Since when did the ride to Canterlot become an overnight trip? You can see it in the distance. They've walked to Canterlot faster. Maybe it's a nitpick, but that's exactly what I thought the first time I watched this episode. And the first time I watch an episode, it's usually with my brain off. Pinkie stops her friends, saying that they have to guard the cake, believing that the bakers are going to sabotage it in the night. None of her friends believe her. Didn't we already have this lesson when Twilight was worried over nothing? You know, that they should at least consider their friends' concerns? Pinkie vows to stay up all night in order to keep the cake safe. She's looking mighty tired when someone runs past her, and she chases the shadow throughout the train to the back of the caboose, where the shadow disappears. Pinkie returns to find yet another shadow behind a door, and she chases it to the engine. Talk to the conductor. Ask him if you saw anything. Talk to the conductor. Ask him if you saw anything. No? Okay. Pinkie returns the cake, promising not to take her eyes off it no matter what. Then the shades go down and everything becomes pitch black. We hear someone munch and run.
Are you okay, Thief?
Alright, that line is pretty good. Give them a point for that. The lights come back on, and the only thing different is the painting. Then Pinkie falls asleep. She wakes up the next morning and marvels over the cake. Twilight comes in to find out that someone bit into the back of it. Pinkie decides that she has to investigate, and she nominates Twilight as her assistant because, well, she's Pinkie. I'm surprised she didn't nominate one of the bakers as her assistant. Pinkie claims that she already knows who did it, and her culprits are the bakers. Then she explains how each one of them did it in a pretty cool media reference, and they are worth 1 point each. And they get cartoonishly over the top in normal Pinkie Pie style. Of course, this episode is making Pinkie act a little more stupid than normal. There is a difference between zaniness and stupidity. Through logic, the bakers are put out of suspicion. Pinkie could have sworn it was one of them because their treats are still intact. And Pinkie describes them in the most delicious way possible. Damn it, Pinkie, now I'm hungry again. Surprise, surprise. The lights go out and all the treats get eaten. Yes, this episode is very predictable. We know who did it, and yes, I'll get to that later. Twilight switches places with Pinkie and tells her to find clues.
You were here at the scene of the crime all night. You're not accusing me, are you? No.
Why not? She was there all night, she kept talking about how the bakers might sabotage it, and was quick to accuse the competition. Not to mention that she herself has a huge sweet tooth. All evidence points to her. In fact, if you did that, the moral this episode is trying to teach, don't assume things, would have come on as even stronger, as we see what it could do to someone. Twilight simply asks her if she saw anything. And then they go retrace Pinkie's steps. They go looking for clues, and for some reason we're not allowed to see them. Even in a Sherlock Holmes story where the point of view is on Watson, he was allowed to see the clues, you know. No, they're not telling us the clues because it would make this mystery even more obvious than it already is. Oh yeah, instead of asking the conductor if he saw anything that night, they look under his hat. I don't know why Twilight isn't telling Pinkie anything either. It really comes off as condescending. And with this episode and Baby Cakes, it doesn't seem like Twilight holds a very high opinion of Pinkie. Then she has Pinkie call everyone back to the dessert car.
Why are we all here again?
Because someone ate your desserts. and Twilight has discovered who did it. Now we see the clues, starting with the blue feather. And Pinkie blames Gustav because she wouldn't think the element of loyalty would betray her and eat the cake. Then Twilight reveals a pink hair, and Pinkie continues to blame Rainbow because she wouldn't think that the element of kindness would cruelly go behind her back and upset her reputation with the cakes. And finally she reveals an eyelash, and Pinkie continues to blame Fluttershy because she doesn't want to believe that the element of generosity would steal some cake that's not hers. Oh, but Pinkie made it look so good that they just couldn't resist. Oh, and by the way, one clue doesn't imply anything. Someone could have framed the three of them by stealing one of Rainbow's feathers, one of Verity's false eyelashes, and a lock of Fluttershy's hair while they were sleeping. There's still more evidence that points towards Pinkie.
Terribly sorry. Sorry, Pinkie. That's okay.
No, it's not okay. Sorries can't fix the cake. And would you look at that, Pinkie learned her lesson, and she finds out that the bakers ate each other's treats, because Pinkie made them seem just so good. You're professional bakers, you live around food. Then they make an abomination straight out of pastry hell and win the competition, and this episode fails. If you're going to write a mystery, don't forget logic. The characters keep abandoning logic to reach the conclusion they want. When you write a mystery story, you're supposed to write the ending first, but you still have to get there through reasonable results. This isn't my least favorite of Amy Keene Rogers' episodes, but objectively, it is her worst. I respect that she was at least trying to keep the ending hidden, unlike in May the Best Pet Win, where the ending was not only obvious, but blatantly obvious. And she did spice it up enough with media references and some pretty good lines of dialogue to avoid making me find this episode totally worthless. When I reviewed Dragon Quest, I stated that there was only one more episode I really hated, and this one isn't it. Yeah, I hate a Season 3 episode, and I only hate one of them. As for this episode, it's safe from my hatred because Amy Keene Rogers was at least trying. Granted, hiding the clues from the audience is probably the worst way you could have done it, but it's still better than Tortoise. This episode starts with the main six getting a letter, asking for their help with the preparations for a wedding in Canterlot, and this wedding happens to be that of Twilight's brother, Shining Armor. Yep, she's got a brother now, despite no previous mentions. And you know what? I'm actually okay with this. There's no evidence against it, except perhaps all the time that Twilight was running from the Canterlot guards. And then there was that time that she held her birthday party at Canterlot. It's not a complete destruction of logic, but there is more evidence against it than there is for it. They do explain their relationship fairly well in this episode's first song. It's definitely very heartfelt, and that justifies the song to me. Is this the best way of filling us in on the relationship? No, but it is believable, speaking as someone with a similar relationship to his own siblings, and that makes this for the most part excusable. For the people who are totally miffed at this, keep in mind that there are plenty of relationships between the other main cast members we haven't seen yet. Take Scootaloo, we still haven't seen her parents 3 seasons in, and people are starting to think that she's an orphan, or homeless for some reason. The main six take the train ride to Canterlot, while Twilight is a little miffed that Shining Armor didn't tell her about the wedding in person. And yeah, I'd be pretty upset too. They get to Canterlot and find that it's under some kind of purple bubble shield, and there are a ton of guards everywhere. Twilight goes to find her brother, who is doing his duties. When Twilight chews him out, he explains that a threat has been made against Canterlot, and since he's captain of the Royal Guard, he's been too busy making that bubble shield to talk to her in person. Yes, the city being under threat is a very odd time to have a wedding, but most weddings take at least a few months to plan, while threats do not. So this is another complaint that I'll let slide. Shining Armor and Twilight have a very heartfelt talk that ends with Twilight becoming his best mare. And then we learn that Shining Armor is getting married to Twilight's old foal-sitter, Princess Cadance, who is an alicorn, which some people have a problem with. I am not one of them. I guess to them, Celestia and Luna are the only alicorns allowed to exist. I'm okay with this because, for one, it doesn't matter, and two, other alicorns were canonized before this. Assuming that the Lesson Zero alicorn was a production error, and Mare-Do-Well can be blamed on poor writing, there's always Hearts and Hooves Day. Speaking of that, Cadance has the ability to manipulate love. Also, her being Twilight's old foal-sitter is definitely a legitimate reason to never be mentioned, unlike her brother. We see that Cadance doesn't seem to recognize Twilight at all. Then we get a few scenes where the main six are preparing for the wedding, and Cadance is being as unpleasant as possible. Twilight's friends are attempting to please even her most demanding requests. It becomes night, and Luna needs a hole to go through the force field of her friend's evil because I don't know. Twilight tells her friends what she thinks of Cadance, but they're quick to defend her, blaming it on wedding stress. And then Twilight lets it out that she doesn't think Cadance is worthy of Shining Armor. Why do people always miss that when they complain about a later scene? Never mind. Twilight goes to visit Shining Armor and tries to talk to him, but Cadance is there and calls Shining Armor into privacy. When Shining Armor starts to argue with Cadance, she casts a magic spell with a green aura that makes his eyes go all googly. and Twilight jumps to the conclusion that Cadence is evil. She runs to tell her friends about this, but they've been promoted to bridesmaids. Since they're so wrapped up in this wedding stuff, Twilight decides that she really is on her own. The next day is the rehearsal, and they find that Twilight is missing. She enters the room and starts to accuse Cadence of being evil, and that little rant sends Cadence away in tears. Shining Armor explains that the Googly Eye spell was a healing spell, and every pony else goes away in disappointment, including Celestia herself, leaving Twilight totally crushed. That was nicely played. And yes, I am excusing this because it was already made clear that Twilight seemed to be possessive. Cadence comes in and apologizes, but surprise, Cadence really is evil, and she traps Twilight in a burning ring of fire that makes her disappear. Then part 1 finishes with happy ending credits music. Then we enter, in my opinion, the better half of this two-parter. It starts off with Twilight being trapped underground, and since she has no idea where the hell she is, I will give a pass on the why she doesn't teleport card. Cadence taunts Twilight, and she actually doesn't reveal her evil plans. I'm pretty impressed. In fact, I'm impressed with this whole scene here. Twilight knocks down a barrier and finds a disheveled Cadence. She claims that the Cadence who imprisoned her was an imposter, and she proves it by using their, let's call it a secret handshake. The two of them decide that they've got to get out of there, and then we get my favorite song of Season 2, This Day aria. And yes, I do like it better than the Smile song. Don't get me wrong, I love both of them, but to put it simply, this song is much more complex. And it actually has context in the episode. It wasn't put in just to make sure this episode reaches the full 22 minutes. They find an opening out of the caves, but get stopped by fake Cadence's bridesmaids. We later learn how they distract them, and yes, it is worth a point. Twilight comes into the wedding, and every pony is having similar reactions to what they did before. But this time, she has the help of the real Cadence. The fake Cadence has been a changeling this whole time. I wasn't exactly fooled, but I don't think that the writers were ever trying to fool the audience, just the other characters. So, no points added or subtracted. The script reveals her as Chrysalis, the queen of the changelings. Hey, the show actually has a queen now. Except she's evil. Her goal is to find food for her subjects, and they feed off of love.
Equestria has more love than any place I've ever encountered.
Are you sure about that? Chrysalis still has Shining Armor under her control, and her minions are chipping away at his bubble shield. How did no one see that? And why is no one stopping her while she monologues? Speaking of which...
He may not be my husband, but he is under my total control now.
No comment. And I'm only deducting a couple of points because after she's done, Celestia at least tries to stop her. And then she gets pwned. At least she tried, right? Celestia commands the main six to go get the elements of harmony in order to defeat the queen. But the bubble shield pops and we get an amazingly entertaining action sequence. And no, we're not talking about that. I'm done talking about controversy. The fight scene ends with them getting captured. And then we get a reprise of This Day aria. And yes, it's pretty good too. Twilight frees Cadence, and she runs to Shining Armor. With her magic, she frees him from his mind control. Unfortunately, he's too weak to cast his bubble shield again.
My love will give you strength.
What a lovely but absolutely ridiculous sentiment.
Why do people have a problem with Chrysalis saying that? Yes, she feeds off of love, but Shining Armor and Cadence don't, and she has no idea what Cadence's powers are at all. And yeah, that statement does sound pretty ridiculous on paper. They touch horns, and together they have enough strength to repel all of the changelings, which won't be seen again until you read the comics. Which you totally should, by the way. The main series, not the micro series. The main six put together the good wedding, and we have a nice happy ending. And it ends with the final pop song. Love is in Bloom. I thought we were spoofing Disney movies, not DreamWorks. Oh well, they earned it, unlike certain DreamWorks movies. Do I surprise anyone by saying that I really like this episode? I think everyone does. Well, almost everyone. If you haven't, and you've got half an hour to spare, watch Anthony C. and Brony Curious's review, where they start to deconstruct this episode's logic. In fact, a lot of the defending I've been doing is essentially a response to their criticisms. Is this episode perfect? No, but I don't really think any episode is. And if you hit anything hard enough with a hammer, it's gonna break. Most people love pretty much everything about this episode, from the songs, to the action sequence, to the villain. And why shouldn't they? This episode was in production for months, and it shows down to the tiniest of details. The only thing I don't like about this episode is the standards it set. Because we have this good of an action sequence, now every action sequence needs to be this good. Because we had a villain this good, now every villain needs to be this good. Because we had a song this good, now every song needs to be this good. Now, when I started this review marathon, I wanted to say that this is the most overrated episode in the show. After all the negative reviews calling this episode crap since then, just because of a couple of out-of-nowhere new characters and some logical problems, that is no longer true. My opinion, this episode is neither the best episode of the show, nor is it an incomprehensible mess. It's just a really good episode.
This day is going to be perfect. The kind of day of which I dreamed since I was small. Every pony will gather round. See, I look lovely in my gown. What they don't know is that I have fooled them all. This day was going to be perfect.
It's that time again. time to overview Season 2, and once again I'm going to give each episode a one-sentence review and a star rating. The rules are the same, with one exception. This time the color of the stars are my enjoyment of the episode, while the star number is the actual episode's quality. Let's go! The Return of Harmony Part 1 properly introduces the characters to newcomers and reestablishes them to oldcomers, and Discord is a great villain. 5 stars. The Return of Harmony Part 2. Despite its really rushed ending, this half was just as enjoyable as the first. 5 stars. Lesson 0. Twilight goes crazy and I love every second of it. 5 stars. Luna Eclipsed. I would like this episode a lot more if Pinky didn't come off as so mean-spirited and inconsiderate, but a really good moral and humor still make it enjoyable to watch. 4 stars. Sisterhooves Social. Wow, you actually did sibling interactions realistically, and amazingly well. 5 stars. The Cutie Pox. So much filler. 2 stars. May the best pet win. If the blatantly predictable plot wasn't enough, each character is an asshole by either abusing animals or allowing abuse to happen. 1 star. The Mysterious Mare-Do-Well. They gave us redundant scenes we didn't need instead of character interaction we did. 1 star. Sweet and Elite. Rarity is still an amazing character and she makes mistakes that she actually learns from. 5 stars. Secret of My Excess. One of the few good Spike episodes, but it brings up very uncomfortable questions that it doesn't want to answer. 4 stars. Family Appreciation Day. The most underrated and forgotten episode in the show, doing wonderful character interactions. 5 stars. Baby Cakes. If Pounded Pumpkin can do all that without even trying, then why did Rainbow and Twilight have to work so hard? 1 star. Hearth Swarming Eve. The play was great, but everything outside of it was really out of character. 3 stars. The Last Roundup. A downright hilarious episode with some logical problems and debatable OOC moments. 4 stars. The Super Speedy Cider Squeezy 6000. So, Granny Smith gambles her livelihood and yet no one stops her. Thank goodness for the humor that's not mean-spirited and the happy ending. 3 stars. Read it and weep. The moral would be great if this was reading his magic, but it's not. Otherwise, a pretty solid episode. 4 stars. Hearts and Hooves Day. The most annoying episode in the show is actually pretty solid. Who knew? 4 stars. A Friend Indeed. After this episode decides to get started, 6 minutes in, it challenges Winter Wrap-Up for the most average episode in the world. And it wins. 3 stars. Putting Your Hoof Down. Unpleasant. 0 stars. It's about time. I think this episode is perfect if it wasn't for the worst ending in the entire show. 4 stars. Dragon Quest. Yes, Spike, you don't have to be a stereotype, even if every single other person like you is a stereotype. 1 star. Hurricane Fluttershy. This episode is perfect in its entirety. 5 stars. Ponyville Confidential. Besides the Key to My Chronicles, this is the best CMC episode to date. 5 stars. Mystery on the Friendship Express. If you want to write a mystery, don't forget logic. 1 star. A Canterlot Wedding, both parts. Another good finale to another great season. 5 stars to both parts. So, how'd we do? A-, an improvement. A C is an okay season. A B is a good season, and an A is a great season. And anything above that is an amazing season. So yeah, this was a great season. Hey, we even had one less bad episode than last season, which is confusing. The bad episodes from Season 1 were just a lack of quality or having a shoehorned Twilight, the latter of which was not a problem in this season. That was obviously the biggest difference in Season 2. All the characters were allowed to learn something, which gave the season a different flavor to Season 1. Some people don't like that flavor, but I do, which is probably why this is my favorite of the 3 seasons to date. The other difference was that the EI rating was removed. I don't exactly know what changed, except that the staff is now allowed to inject nightmare fuel into a good number of their episodes. The good episodes hit new highs and were amazingly good, and I wish that I could say that the bad episodes were better as well. They weren't. But to say that they were worse isn't accurate either. The bad episodes were of a different breed of bad. They were definitely more structurally sound, as in they knew what they wanted to do. The problem was with what they were trying to do, meaning that they were harder to take issue with, but if you did take issue with them, they line up as the worst episodes of the show. The Mysterious Mare-Do-Well wanted to take a shot at Rainbow's ego, and it did it, regardless of what else it killed. Putting Your Hoof Down wanted to make Fluttershy stand up for herself, and it did succeed in that regard. Mystery on the Friendship Express was probably the only exception to this. There's also a more clear explanation of why we had 6 bad episodes. I don't want to be rude or anything, but these two have only had one okay episode between them this season, and that episode had so little to do with anything that it may as well have been fanfiction. The first thing I should say is to Megan McCarthy. Be very careful who you hire as writers. Let's see if her faith in Corey Powell is well placed when I get around to reviewing Sleepless in Ponyville. That's not to say that Charlotte Fullerton and Meriwether Williams are bad writers. After all, they made a career out of it, and they're not politicians or pop stars, so some level of quality is required. But in seriousness, they have had a history. Meriwether Williams wrote for SpongeBob SquarePants, back when it was good. Her name appears in the credits of some of the best episodes of the show, namely Band Geeks and Chocolate with Nuts. I still don't know where this attraction to writing assholes came from, but I know that she is good at this. And with Wonderbolts Academy, she proved that she could do this show well too. In fact, the only time she really pissed me off on her own was with Dragon Quest, which seemed to want to reinforce stereotypes, probably due to a lack of oversight or thought. I suppose all I got to say about her is that she should write her own stories and do her own thing, because both of her collaborations have problems. And the only bad part about Wonderbolts Academy, the ending, was not her fault. And then we have Charlotte Fullerton, my least favorite writer on the show. Believe it or not, she's not my least favorite because she can't write well, it's because she can. Suited for Success is not only a wonderful episode, but it's the staff's favorite episode to date. For every other episode, she seems to not care whether or not characters are in character, or even have a logical reason to be there. But, like every other writer on the show, she is a veteran. Let's see what she's done. Her Wikipedia page states that she wrote the Fun Facts feature on the High School Musical DVD. Okay, let's see what else she's done. One episode of Kim Possible, where there's a villain who turns people into babies. One episode of Fairly Odd Parents about Timmy becoming his father's boss. The only shows I can tell that she spent more than one episode on are the Endless Ben 10 reincarnations. And she's the co-story editor for Omniverse. I suppose I am now obligated to review that at some point. Okay, now I'm just confused. Lauren Faust hired people she had previously worked with. For example, Chris Savino took over the Powerpuff Girls when Craig McCracken moved on to Foster's, and Emmy Larson wrote some episodes of Foster's, under his real name by the way. As far as I can tell, Charlotte Fullerton seems to be relatively new, and since she wrote no episodes of Season 3, she's probably off the show. That's probably why she gave her last episode to someone else. And if you watched my review of that episode, you know how badly I think it turned out. The short version? It added up to the episode I like the least of the entire show. It's not my least favorite, because that would imply that I actually liked it somewhat. I probably hate putting her hoof down because it's a type of bat that I have never encountered before, like ever. Let me explain. The worst episode of most shows would be just as bad no matter what show it would be in. The Splinter would be just as disgusting if it was in MLP. Not All Dogs Go to Heaven would be just as offensive if it was in MLP. However, if you put Putting Your Hoof Down in SpongeBob or Family Guy, it'd still be terrible, but it wouldn't be this cringe-worthy. We have come to know these characters throughout 2.5 seasons, and yes, we've even come to see them as friends. Then we see Fluttershy insulting two of her best friends' reason for living, by telling them that no one gives, and I quote, a flying feather about them. We've seen Rarity's petty passion about fashion. We've seen how Pinky loves to throw parties, and we've seen how letting their friends down not only upsets them, but drives them into depression. Most importantly, we've seen their friendship grow, and the things that they've done for each other. We've seen Pinky come to Fluttershy's defense after Gilda called her, and I quote, a doofus. We've seen Rarity painstakingly make at least 3 gala dresses for Fluttershy for free. Not only does Fluttershy say that their lives are pointless, but she finds absolutely no value in that friendship, and she says it with no hesitation. It's a testament to this show's quality that it could create an insult so powerful, so mean-spirited, and so vindictive. And the better the show gets, the more we learn about these characters, the worse Putting Her Hoof Down gets. In Hurricane Fluttershy, we learn how deeply affected she was by simple taunts. She knows what bullying could do to someone, and she wanted to inflict that level of pain on two of her best friends for the shocking crime of trying to get her to stop beating ponies up. The effect works in reverse too, which is why Hurricane Fluttershy is such the masterpiece it is as well. The more realized each character becomes, the more important each of these episodes are, the more they explain, and the better they get. I must say that Cindy Morrow was amazing this season, writing my 2 favorite episodes of the season, the aforementioned Hurricane Fluttershy and Sisterhooves Social. Yes, I like them both more than The Return of Harmony and A Canterlot Wedding. And then there's M.A. Larson. He wasn't exactly on top of the world this season. In Season 1, I gave his episodes a straight 5-star rating across the board. This season, the only 5 stars I gave him was The Return of Harmony. But he wasn't bad, and he did come back to the top of the world in Season 3. And Amy Keating-Rogers hasn't changed in the slightest. And I'm sure that she'll be just as good when she returns in Season 4. At least she'll be better than who we might be getting. I guess the only thing left is to see how Season 3 does without either of them. I'll see you then.